Hey, everybody. We're live now. I'm Johnny Walker
Hello.
Bread.
Hello.
Hello.
And Merry Christmas.
We have a couple of special guests here. We have Nathan DeBruin, photographer, who was one of the witnesses for the defense. And we also have Ann Fiedler. Oh, my gosh. The reason why I got tripped up, she has Grambo there on her actual identification deal. I was looking. So we have Ann Fiedler, who was I would say, the star witness of the defense, except for maybe Kyle, of course. And then we have a whole panel here. We're going to go ahead and around and let everybody introduce themselves, including our guests. So, Paul, why don't you go next?
Hey, cheers, my mates. My name is Paul. I come from the Czech Republic, small YouTube channel, Logical Checkmate. I'm since the beginning invested in the Kyle Rittenhouse saga because, many reasons. One of the biggest ones is that media had all the truth between them, yet they convinced like half of your population of the exact opposite.
That's for sure.
Okay. How about you, Kevin?
Hey, good morning, afternoon, depending on where in the country you are, I guess. Kevin Mathewson. I am the editor. Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah. What time is it out by you right now?
7
p.m., jeez.
Yeah.
I am the editor of the Kenosha County Eye, a small website here in Kenosha, city of Kenosha.
Okay.
Neil?
Hi, guys. I'm Neil Kiernan, also known as V Radio. I've been a podcaster since 2008. I was heavily invested in the Kyle Rittenhouse issues. One of the things that brought me kind of out of, I don't want to say retirement, but I was inactive for a while, focusing more on my family and my kids' sports. But now I'm back to making content on a regular basis, and it's going to be great to be on this panel.
Okay, how about you, Ann?
I'm Ann, otherwise nicknamed Grambo. Thank you, whoever really did that. I'm not a grandmother, by the way. Thank you very much for that. Although it was funny because I do have a buddy that was always calling me Granny Annie. I just went and stood down there. We were tired of businesses being burnt down, and everybody has a right to protest, and we're hoping to maybe prevent some of the opportunists from doing any more damage or hurting anyone or destroying any other businesses. So that's why I went down there.
Okay. How about you, Nathan?
I'm Nathan. My part, I was a witness in the Rittenhouse trial. My whole reason I went down that night, or I should say that whole week, was to capture the history that was going down in the town, because to my knowledge, I've never personally seen anything like this before. So I wanted to capture it, and that was my whole agenda for originally going down there.
All right. Okay, Neil's going to moderate this for me, but I will answer Ann's question. Nick Ricchito was the one that coined the term Grambo.
Is he really?
Been wondering,
oh, that's awesome.
That's who it was.
I think
Thanks,
it's
Nick.
really meant to be a term of endearment just because you were tough and you weren't backing down when the prosecutors were trying to smack you around. I guess the first thing I'd like to ask this panel, because obviously, it's been a little bit since the verdict, and, is there anything that you guys have seen that has popped up now as far as, like, any difference in the dialogue, or perhaps maybe the fact that you're shocked that something is still the same? I guess I'll start with Logical Checkmate, and then we'll just kind of move clockwise or counterclockwise.
Sure. What I've seen, what did not surprise me at all, was basically moving the goalpost. And that is, technically what he did was legal, but we should probably change the laws, because of that, because obviously. And what's remained the same is still that people believe just lunacy things, that Kyle shot, indiscriminately into the crowd, or that he shot, black and brown people. Just recently there was a YouTuber that was spewing that, so yeah, about that, and just is great testament to the media. You know, like how they had the people wrapped around their finger and fed them lies.
What about you, Kevin?
So, yeah. So some of the, like Paul said, there's some legislators here in Kenosha. 3 Democrats. One is the mayor's nephew, Tip McGuire is his name, are trying to change the law now in regards to carrying weapons. It's like the old saying, never let a good tragedy go to waste.
They're trying to change your firearms laws in Kenosha?
Well, in the entire state.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which right now the Republicans control both houses by pretty big margins, so I don't think they're going to have any success with that. But if anything, this kind of showed why we need robust gun rights in Wisconsin, is for when the government cannot provide for your safety. So if anything, this is a textbook of why we need to have the right to bear arms. But of course, the Democrats are trying to use this to their advantage, saying, well, look, they're playing off the people who think, more guns equals bad, right? Even though we all knew that all the bad guys had guns, those who were down there could hear all the guns going off. So, I mean, it was clear that the bad guys had guns, and, only good guys listen to gun laws. So that's my main takeaway lately.
There's somebody in the chat pointing out that they do remember that seems to be the point that they all took from the verdict was, see, this is why we shouldn't have guns.
Yep.
So that would be your turn, Grambo. Tell us what has come up for you, whether it's a comment on what other people have said or anything new come out, or just anything that you're astonished is still the same about the dialect or dialectic so far as this.
Well, I'm not really on social media much, so I don't see comments about me or anything, which, whatever, doesn't bother me. But I do still see a lot of quick videos and stuff, and like The View and Joy Reid and just those people that were so against Kyle. It's just the same rhetoric, the same comments. It's like, haven't you seen the trial? And so that's kind of frustrating. It's like, the evidence was all laid out. The videos showed it, but yet we still had to go through the court. So I think it's still the same rhetoric, the same comments, how everybody down there is a white supremacist, whether they're talking about Kyle or me. I mean, I've even heard bad comments about Nathan, and it's like the guy was just down there taking pictures.
Nathan?
Yeah, I did see one down there, and I think somebody was correcting him. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of time to get on social media, so mine's usually intermittent. So
probably
I want
better
to
for
come
your
back.
sanity.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, because otherwise I'd be mad texting, and it's not worth my time, the little bit of time that I do have. So, yeah, I just think it's the same crap, how he shouldn't have been down there, we shouldn't have been there. Really, the opportunists shouldn't have been there either. So felons shouldn't have been there with guns. And the biggest thing that gets me is that Gage has not been charged with anything, a felony for his gun charge or attempted murder. That's the biggest thing that shocks me.
Well, he admitted that his concealed carry license was not valid when he was there.
Yeah, he claimed that he forgot to renew it, but I believe he got it taken away from a prior charge.
Yes, he got it taken away. Yeah, he's a liar.
Yeah, so he's a felon. So I think that's the biggest for me.
What about you, Nathan?
Being a witness in the trial, I got to see really how bad some of the big bots media was. I got to see things that the cameras didn't get to see, and so I got to see how they ran with their narrative to get people behind them or backing that narrative. And it's terrible what they did. And that's one of my biggest takeaways from it. Don't always believe what you see on the TV.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And just remember to say what I'm saying.
Finish that up.
Yeah.
Oh. Johnny?
I think the biggest takeaway I got out of it was just, I did not know the extent to which the media could screw things up. Some of it intentionally, in my opinion, but certainly sheer negligence. We're still hearing it. A year, over a year now, almost a year and a half later, they still are making the same mistakes that they did initially. There's no excuse for it. There's a certain sense of professionalism that you're supposed to exhibit whenever you're a part of the mainstream media, and that is you check and you bend over backwards to make sure that your information is correct. There is none of that. They simply just don't care anymore. And I didn't realize it was this bad until the actual trial. Well, not even the trial, but I mean, as soon as the event started happening, I was just shaking my head at how people could get things so fouled up. The other big takeaway I took away from this was I didn't realize that the legal profession had plummeted so badly. And now I've got a new series coming out called Local Lawyers, and it's going to focus on some of the inane professionals, as we think they should be, going on in the country. And we saw a lot of that during the trial, especially those two prosecutors. So we'll talk a lot about that, the upcoming deal. By the way, I should want to make a little bit of an adjustment here. I'd like to have the four of us and direct our questions to the two guest hosts and have them, rather than picking up a question, having us all respond to it, because I think we're mostly interested. We've talked about this so much, but I'd like to hear what Grambo and Nathan have to respond. And
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just kind of setting the frame, just to give everybody the opportunity.
I want to make sure of that.
No problem. To comment on what everybody said, and also just to kind of set the situation where we start asking questions of our witness guests. For me, aside from the fact that there are still people very clearly in denial, and it doesn't look like anything is going to change that, kind of reminds me of what Soviet defector Yuri Bezmenov warned us about when he came to this country in the 80s to warn us about Soviet ideological subversion, is that you're going to get to a point where real information doesn't matter to you anymore, that no amount of the truth is going to change their point of view because it's based in emotion. The new Matrix film just came out, and it's not like the greatest film ever, but the Wachowskis actually made V for Vendetta, and they made the Matrix films, and they're activist films. But there's a moment in the film specifically where the villain says, the reason that we want everything based in emotion is that emotion is so much easier to control than facts. And that's what I think the media is really up to. That was the takeaway I got from the latest film in it. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. And again, the Wachowskis are doing what they always do, which is they get mainstream popcorn films that have real messages that are kind of hidden if you pay attention. In so much as, like, since the verdict, there isn't really anything new aside from people occasionally clinging to the drone video as if it somehow proves something. But there's really, it just comes back to, that was one final thing I want to point out. I did a video specifically on this called "Why Do They Still Think He's Guilty?" And it was playing a clip from a show called The Real, which I guess is like a cheap version of The View. Yeah. And they ask one of the panelists, and she says, well, for me, it's about the ideology. That is what the country needs to be concerned about. It was like, no, okay, well, you just played your hand. Why is it about the ideology? The ideology has nothing to do with whether or not he's guilty or innocent. Mm-hmm. But that's exactly why they need him to be guilty, because of the ideology. The facts of the case are secondary to the ideological war. And so, anyway, all right, bouncing back, I guess, then going in the other direction. Johnny, why don't you ask our witness guests the first question?
Okay, so how did you guys get to where you were there in the trial? And I'll start off with you, Grandpa.
I got together with some neighbors. Actually, it was my birthday, the summer of 2020. And some of my neighbors were over. We were, having a few beers. We were burning sticks because I had cleaned the yard. And we were just all talking about, everything going on and the destruction over in Minnesota and Seattle. And, everybody's like, oh, somebody needs to do something. Well, then a couple days later, the neighbors got a hold of me and said, hey, we'd like to start a patriot group. Just go out there with our flags and let the country know, let our countrymen know that we support them. So we started that. There was just 5 of us. We started that. We went with, our sidearms and everything. And other people came up and they liked that it was the Second Amendment. We had the flags and they loved the idea. It was non-political. And then the BLM rallies started happening, and they went into a small town, Port Washington. And there was a huge resistance crowd for them, to greet them. And they were actually louder than what BLM could broadcast what they were saying. And there actually had BLM members that were running up to businesses and not allowing customers to go in, or threatening the customers, or, I don't want to say strong arming them, but intimidating them. That's a better word. And intimidating businesses and telling them they need to support BLM, or BLM was going to burn their business down. And it's like, man, that's not right. And, then we had a BLM march in our town, and I saw them do the same thing downtown. And it was all young kids. They were 14, 15, 17 years old. Bringing their little 2, 3, 4-year-olds with them while they're screaming that we're racists and death to pigs. And it was just like, my God, you guys don't even know what the world is about yet. And I just never knew, because I don't have kids, where this ideology is coming from. Why are they thinking this way? So we started getting a lot of people that wanted to throw their Trump flags, and we were being accused of being Trumpers and racists, and we were spit on. And it's like, Jesus, we just got flags. So, towards the end, threw caution to the wind, says, fine, everybody can bring what they want. It's a free country. And that kind of took it a little bit further, because now you're really seeing BLMers coming up and standing on a corner. And again, they're all high schoolers, and threatening us. And there's one guy out there with a big megaphone yelling F Trump with his frickin' 3-year-old son under his arm. And it just was frustrating. And then the stuff happened in Kenosha with Jacob Blake. And I saw that man, that older gentleman, business owner, he was protecting a business, get hit in the face with that frozen bottle, or whatever the item was. I know it was a bottle. And that really bothered me, because part of our Patriot group was supporting the veterans, protecting our elderly, watching out for the children, all of our service members. So that really got to me. And then all the businesses being burnt down. And then Governor Evers not even taking responsibility. The mayor telling the police to stand down, and Evers not allowing the National Guard to come in. It was like, my God, somebody needs to help these businessmen, these businesses. And then I got a call from, our neighbors that all said, hey, we're going to go down there and we're going to help protect businesses. Do you want to go along? And I'm like, absolutely. I just felt like it's something I had to do. That was my passion, is everybody has a right to have their business. You have a right to protest. You don't have a right to destroy somebody's life because you're pissed off or being an opportunist. So that's how I got down there.
All right, Nathan, your turn. Same question.
So I actually just got back from vacation to South Dakota and around that area at the time of the Jacob Blake shooting. And when I returned home, that's when that video was like just making its rounds on social media and all that. So I decided, as soon as I didn't even unpack yet, I grabbed my camera and found out where the location of it all, that whole Jacob Blake the whole shooting went down, and it was blocked off by the time I got there. The sun was just setting, and that's where it all started for me. And then I just followed everyone down to the downtown area around Civic Park, and I continued capturing the photos that were of all the stuff that was going on down there at the time.
So I guess my question to the two of you guys specifically, since I've interviewed both of you individually, would be, were there any questions that you had for each other? Any thoughts or perspectives that you had so far as each other's interactions with this case? I know, like Grambo, you talked about possibly doing some kind of a photo shoot with Nathan. We discussed that. Mm-hmm. Nathan, did you have any thoughts? Did you get a chance to watch her, testimony, and how did it impact your thoughts on the trial, etc.? Go ahead and start, Anne.
The only question I have for Nathan is, I want to know the relationship between him and Binger. It seemed to be a little bit hostile, or not Binger, Kraus, or both. It seemed to be a little bit hostile, and I hear there's a little bit of a story. So I think that's my question for Nathan is, how did that come about? I apologize. I did not see Nathan's whole testimony. I only saw the part where he had said they were trying to make him change his statement.
Absolutely. I do feel like there was some kind of a grudge that Kraus was holding against me. And my personal beliefs, and this is only my personal beliefs, it is because I had that interview with Kevin Mathewson. And I know they had a little situation in between my statement on the stand. So I do know Kraus was a little heated after that, and I just feel like he took it out on me because he thought he could personally humiliate me on national TV.
Now, Nathan, take a moment. I mean, did you have any questions for Anne?
I watched most of your statement, and I saw how you corrected. I thought it was Binger on some things. How you like, no, that's not what I said, or like I didn't exactly say that, and it kind of gave me comfort to know that he didn't try to. The prosecution didn't just try to push answers just out of me.
So you felt a kinship.
Yeah.
Man, I know what that's like. All right, so that would make it Paul's turn. Ask a question to the guests.
Well, I don't really have that many questions because simply when Joanne was talking, I was like, yep, that makes sense. Yep, you protect your people. Everything that you said absolutely makes sense. And like to such a degree that when someone would be saying something else would be lunacy to me, like absolute one. Because as you mentioned, for example, the older gentleman, I believe he was 70 years old, like at the time, he got his face completely busted for doing precisely what plenty of the protesters are arguing. Hey, if someone is destroying their property, use non-lethal, like option. He sprayed them with the fire extinguisher, and he almost died as a result of that. Yeah. And then, I wonder why armed people started to gather, so, everything that you said made absolute sense to me, because, again, you protect your people. But if I would have to ask, I guess, that would be Nathan. Mate, do you plan, to travel a wee bit, around the country in the future? And basically go to these, let's say, hot spots?
I thought about it. I'm trying to get more knowledge into the behind the scenes, like how to stream it and things like that. So that's what I'm gathering knowledge about currently. And hopefully one day in the future, that is something I would like to do. I really enjoy traveling. So I think I would really enjoy doing that.
Cool.
All right. Now, I wanted to I have a point in my head I wanted to share with everybody real quick before we move on to Kevin, just because it's burning a hole in my head. But funny announcement, interesting little point that took place. I got a Sprizzy ad which is where they use Google Ads specifically for my interview with Joanne. And they initially rejected it, and then I tried again, and then they did it, and then they changed it, like as in they denied it in the middle of running the ad. And when they finally gave me the reason why, it said, like, shocking information. So I'm not allowed to advertise my interview because of shocking information, shocking content. So a video where I talk to someone for 2 hours is shocking, and people need to be protected from that. So I'm not allowed to advertise it. So let me take that as a moment to everybody watching the stream on the various platforms. Please remember that you basically are going to have to be the people who are going to push this message. If you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, ring the bell on everybody's channels that's on this panel. With that said, Kevin, it's your turn.
Hey. So, Grambo.
Yes.
Here's my question for you, and this is kind of off, outside of the box. So remember, I don't know if you saw this, but just before the trial, the Rittenhouse trial, did you know that Grosskreutz was going through his second DUI? And like 4 days before the trial, some liberal judge dismissed it?
No.
Okay, well, now the next trial coming up related to all this is Zeminski, okay? He had an open case for punching his wife in the face in front of his kids while they were driving. And
hang on a second, Kevin. I think Nathan is going to be going up into that trial here at some point. Do we need to disclose much of this? I don't know.
Well, this is all stuff that's in the public realm. I don't think Nate will talk about it.
I didn't know that. I thought that because you work behind the scenes a lot, so I thought you might have some information here.
Yeah, I don't think
shared with Nathan, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and with Nate, I think his testimony is going to be limited to just validating the photos he took, because I don't know if he knew what he was looking at when he took the photos, but they're just going to have to ask him, "Hey, did you take this photo? Is it true and accurate?" Type of thing. So anyway, so Zeminski, in Wisconsin, if you're on trial or you're a witness in a trial, any cases that you have that are open are free game for prosecutors, for the defense. So we just learned that they dismissed those domestic battery charges against Zeminski 4 days after that trial. So now he's going to be in the same situation as Gage, where he kind of got this hookup. Does that sound shady to you, or what are your thoughts on that?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's shady. I mean, I can't believe that Zeminski wasn't even testifying. I'm surprised he wasn't called. There's a lot of people I'm surprised weren't called as witnesses, but yeah, I think it's shady as hell.
Did you have anything on that? I'm sorry, go ahead. Whoever was talking.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to ask, does anybody else have a follow-up on that? Any thoughts on that? Because I think that's a good question pretty much for everybody, really.
Yeah, it's just this type of thing bothers me, and especially with these DAs. So the DA to the north of us, Racine County, she's the one, her name is Patricia Hansen. She's the one who dismissed these charges, and she's not telling anybody why. No record of why, just straight up dismissal. So I'm theorizing they don't really want to prosecute Zeminski. And if you guys remember during the Rittenhouse trial, Binger kept saying, "Oh, I'm prosecuting Zeminski in a couple months. I'll be prosecuting him in a couple months. Oh, don't worry, we're prosecuting him." I don't really think they want consequences for Zeminski. I mean, the most he's facing is 3 years bifurcated sentence in prison for what he did, for shooting a gun in the air during a riot, for burning a trailer. 3 years does not seem to match. The punishment does not seem to match the crime, and that's if he's maxed out. So I just see all these shenanigans, and it really bothers me because they don't talk to the media, and more importantly, down here, the media doesn't ask those tough questions. So you won't see anything about that in the Kenosha News or the Racine Journal. They're all owned by the same company, Lee Enterprises. They just don't get into politics if it's not, left serving.
By the way, we should probably mention to our audience who Joshua Zeminski is, but he is a compadre of Joseph Rosenbaum, the first person that Kyle Rittenhouse shot that night. He has a long criminal record. He's just an overall grade A jackass, and he was the one, as Kyle was running, fired a pistol into the air, which probably got Joseph Rosenbaum killed. But whatever the case, that's who Joshua Zeminski is. And by the way, Neil, before we move on or before we go too much further, I know that people are itching to hear about what happened between Kevin and Binger and Kraus. Okay, so let's make sure we don't forget to let Kevin weigh in on that, because that is really interesting.
No, for sure. The comment that I would make just about Zeminski was just to say that it's crazy to me that why is this guy still walking around?
Yeah, like, and his wife is in prison right now. So
right,
that's the funny thing. She was out on
many pages of like offenses. At what point do you just go away? Go ahead.
Yeah, and here's the problem with Zeminski, right? If you look at Zeminski's rap sheet, which is on my website, and that's from the DOJ, so there's no gray area. It's black and white. It's from the Wisconsin Department of Justice. He's got so many felony charges, but he's got 0 felony convictions. So this is a guy who his whole life, he gets charged with all these robbery and serious felonies, but they all get pled down. He's not a felon. The guy is not a felon. I think he will be at the end of next month, but this is a guy who has kind of profited off of the progressive prosecutor thing, like this guy from Philly, what's his name? The wave of progressive prosecutors who are not prosecuting retail theft, and so people are just running into Walgreens and taking carts full of shit out. It's like he knows the system and he's been beating it. And people in the chat are asking, well, why didn't Richards call Zeminski? Zeminski would not have testified. His lawyer was there with him. I know who his lawyer is. He was there. He was under subpoena. He was not called because in Wisconsin, if you plan to assert the fifth as a witness, it's outside of the presence of the jury. So if they would have called him, he would have asserted his Fifth Amendment privilege outside of the presence of the jury, and the judge would have dismissed him. So either side, the prosecution is in a better position because they could have offered him immunity for his testimony, which would have said, look, even if you implicate yourself during your testimony, we're not going to use that against you in the trial. The prosecution did not do that. So it made it impossible for the defense to call him because anything he would have said obviously would have been used against him in his criminal trial.
So, all right, I guess then, Paul, did you have a comment on what we've discussed so far before we move forward? And then we should ask Nathan after that.
Yeah, we just have someone in the chat, writing that the Zeminski prosecutor subpoenaed me, are flying me in, and never shook out of my testimony. It will be interesting. So, if any one of you know who that is, that would be maybe interesting to hear. Anywho, I just wanted to ask Joanne, with Dominic, just quickly, if you could, how he's like and stuff like that, and basically, if how he was taking the situation immediately after the Kyle came back to the car source where you were stationed, if he was supporting, or what was basically there going on, if you could say that.
Dominic was generally a nice guy. He's very soft-spoken, well-mannered. He was on the roof when we got to the car source. He went up on the roof with some of the other guys, and I was down on the ground with Kyle and a few other guys. But after Kyle had come back, I went and got Dominic off the roof, and he came in. He was very supportive. He was very concerned. I mean, you could see he was literally upset and concerned. Kyle wanted to call, I don't know if his sister, and he was just shaking so bad, and he kept dropping his phone that I just actually gave Dominic my phone and said, here, just let him make a phone call. And when I went out to get everybody else off the roof, came back in, they were gone. So, like I said, from what I know of him, he was a sweet kid.
Just like because you described it, your phone stayed behind, right? They didn't take over your phone, right?
No, they didn't take my phone. They had it laying on the table. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, sounds like a decent kid.
Yeah, he was. He was really nice.
All right. So Nathan, you've been listening to some of the stuff that we've been saying so far. Did you have any insider comments that you wanted to make on anything that's been said in the past 10 minutes?
No.
Okay, just making sure you're included if you need to be. All right, so Johnny, I guess that would make it your turn again.
Okay, I'm going to take up this time here to ask Kevin about Binger and Kraus. I really, really want to know about this. Kevin, what went on between you and Binger and you and Kraus there that day?
Are we talking about just during Nathan's testimony or in general?
I think that's the one that Nathan was talking about when I met with him yesterday. He said something about that Kraus wanted to get even for something that happened between you and Kraus and Binger. Can you explain what happened there?
Well, God, that's the entirety, the totality of the situation between me and the DA's office would take up its whole show. But just limiting it to that day. So when Nate met with his lawyer, that's when I met Nate, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, can I interview you for my website?" And I did get permission from his lawyer too. I said, "Hey, this is the scope of what I'm going to write about," and he gave me permission. He wanted to know exactly the content, but this was not something that was done nefariously by myself. I mean, I work with Nate's lawyer every day, so I know how he rolls, and he doesn't fuck around. He's a good lawyer, and so I wrote that article about Nate feeling intimidated by these prosecutors, and that they got pissed off when he wouldn't change his story, and they kind of said to him, "Well, you're no use to us now. Now we're going to feed you to the Richards side, and they're going to be so mean to you," which is BS. I mean, Richards was polite as far as what I've heard Nate say publicly. I mean, he was polite and respectful to Nathan, and he got kind of two different treatments there from the two different sides, and that's obvious to all of us that there's big contrast. But anyways, long story short is, so when Nate got on the stand, I don't think Kraus was really interested in prosecuting Kyle. I think he did a spin, and now he's trying to defend his office, right? So his questions towards Nathan were not about impeaching his testimony. They were just about the article I wrote about Nate, and Nate talking about how he was pressured to change his statement. So that was Kraus's turn to try to. He probably thought what I wrote was a lie, and it wasn't. I think I quoted you accurately, Nate, right? I mean, nothing in that article was incorrect, right?
No, not at all.
So go ahead.
And what I was also kind of referring to is when he talked about you being like a failed wedding photographer or
That's
whatever.
Right.
That
Yeah.
Or a gossip columnist.
Gossip blogger. And that's funny. So okay. So yeah. So anyways, so he was questioning Nate on the stand, and I think it was twofold. One, he was trying to get back at Nate for talking to me because that embarrassed his office. I mean, I'm the only one who knows how many times people read each article, and that article was read in the hundreds of thousands of times. So before the trial even started, people knew the shenanigans that were coming up, and that article was posted just a couple days before the trial, and that really pissed them off. And so part of that is they were mad at Nate for saying that the truth, and they were mad at me for writing the article. And so there was a brief pause in between these interrogation sessions with Nate, and Lunchbox, as I like to call him, was walking past me and kind of made some stupid snide comment about, I don't remember, but so I'm like, okay, well, he's opening the door, so to speak. So I said, you're just a what I say, something like you're a unethical prosecutor and you belong in prison. And he called me a failed wedding photographer, which is just so funny because that couldn't be any farther from the truth. So I've been a wedding photographer now since 2008, so 13 years. And actually between 2012 and 2015, I won 4 awards, the Knot Best of Weddings. So the knot.com is like a bridal website. And I was inducted into the Knot Best of Weddings Photographer Hall of Fame. So, I mean, I'm just going to throw that out there that I'm an award-winning photographer. So him saying I'm a failed photographer didn't make any sense to me.
I just think that's a big deal.
Like, I just think that was upset that you weren't going to photograph he and Binger's wedding.
Yeah. I made it clear that I would not photograph their wedding because there's a conflict of interest.
All right.
And so we just start going back and forth, and I'll admit, I should not have engaged with him. But we just started going back and forth, and he said, "You're a failed wedding photographer." I said, "Well, you fail at life." And I just kept having to bet. I just kept one-upping him. I mean, he went to a fancy law school. He's no dummy. But when it comes to these street yard fights, arguments, he loses every time because he was the kid that was picked on for being the fat little kid. So, I mean, he doesn't know how to, argue and stuff. So we just went back and forth until the judge was finally like, "Hey, I've had enough. I don't want to hear it anymore," and yelled at Kraus, because Kraus is supposed to be the adult in the room. I'm just a gossip blogger, right? So I actually made a complaint to the Wisconsin Office of Lawyer Regulation because I think his conduct, repeatedly referring to my website throughout the course of the trial in a negative manner, him calling me a tool, a failed wedding photographer, saying, this and that, I thought that was inappropriate behavior. So I filed a complaint with the Office of Lawyer Regulation. And I remember, I didn't say anything about Binger. I didn't say anything about homosexuality or anything. And so his response to the complaint was, "Oh, me and Binger are not homosexual lovers." And when I read this, I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? Where did that come from? I never accused them of being lovers. Never.
That's why I made that joke, was specifically because of that nonsense.
Yeah, it was like, what is it? Methinks doth protest too much. That was what, Hamlet, right? Neil, you know that, don't you?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those weird things that happened, and it was unprofessional. And then again, this guy's prosecuting a murder trial, and he's more worried about my website and what Nate thinks of his office than he is of prosecuting. Imagine if this was a real murder trial. In other words, a person who actually committed murder. Wouldn't we be upset as residents that, hey, you're prosecuting a murderer here? Let's step up the professional behavior and stop getting lost in the weeds and do your job, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I think that people don't look at it also from the perspective of the accused at all. There's no empathy whatsoever. And so I wanted to switch gears a bit. There was a question from the audience.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on a second, Neil. I had a comment to Kevin about that. Is there's a lot of people out there calling Kyle a murderer. So I'm kind of curious as to what they thought about the prosecution, because I had that feeling they were just grasping at straws through a lot of the trial, especially towards the end when they got to the defense witnesses. I'm kind of curious as to what those people think, because again, they still say Kyle's a murderer. So what do they think the prosecution did in a murder trial?
Well, here's the funny thing is that the liberals now have flipped on Kraus and Binger, who are card-carrying Democrats, and basically saying you guys are so incompetent that you couldn't even get a conviction out of this kid. So they eat their own, and that's at least what it's like here in Kenosha and around the world and country. I don't know what it's like, but here the liberals and the people who really wanted to see Kyle in prison are also upset with Binger and Kraus, saying that they didn't go far enough. In other words, they did not commit enough prosecutorial misconduct.
They were too ethical.
Yeah, I guess they were too ethical. But yeah,
despite Binger's attempts at public speaking. Go ahead, Grambo.
I was going to say, I really think that Binger and Krause were too busy deterring the defense or trying to block the defense from evidence that they didn't go through the evidence thoroughly enough. I mean, they've never asked me one question. Law enforcement, to go to that one guy's question, law enforcement never questioned me. The first I had was days later with the FBI. So I think Krause and Binger were too busy trying to withhold from the defense that they didn't prepare themselves very well either.
And that was the question from the audience for you, was just that Iva asked, were you in any way like predisposed, or deposed is the word? Basically, yeah, right here. Did the DA office ever interview you before the trial, or is only giving a statement to law enforcement? It kind of felt to me like they just literally brought you in that day. Is that really it?
Yeah, I was subpoenaed by the DA, but they never questioned me ahead of time. In fact, I had to call them because my subpoena came the Saturday before the trial started. And I had heard on Johnny Walker Dredd's show that my name was on a subpoena list.
Hey, Johnny, your news.
And you know what? Sorry to cut you off, but Grambo, that subpoena in Wisconsin is not valid.
I know.
So
I know.
What they do in Wisconsin is you have to be physically served by a police officer for a subpoena or a process server like myself to be valid. You got it in the mail. You didn't have to show up if you didn't want to. Yeah, same thing with Nate. So you guys didn't have to show up, and they would have been screwed. They would have had to ask for a continuance, which the judge would not have granted. So likely you would have had a police officer come to your house with a material witness warrant.
Right.
They would have arrested you, and they would have brought you to court. And obviously it's not a criminal charge or anything, but that would have been embarrassing and kind of a pain in the ass for you too. And that just goes to show, as much as they wanted Kyle in prison, they didn't put in the work. I mean, even with Nate, how far before the trial did they interview you? It was only, a week?
A week or two.
Yes,
it wasn't much at all.
So for being these idealist, far left activist prosecutors, they really didn't put in the work, which is good and bad,
Kevin, I think it goes beyond that. When you look at the actual motion.
Did you freeze up, Johnny?
Yeah, Johnny freeze up.
Of what I saw when I was teaching high school. I'm sorry?
Could you restate your point? You froze for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the lack of effort seemed to like proof. Just it did everything. Okay, here we go again. All right, the lack of effort showed up in the motion hearings, the motions that were filed by Binger and them. You read these, and you think this was written by some high school kid. For example, the links that he provided, there was no citation effort. It was just links posted in a footnote, and the links were to crazy stuff, like, and the judge even caught it, like a newspaper article, really, things like Wired, and I always thought that if you're going to be filing a motion, this is a professional document. You're going to pour hours and hours into this thing. It looked like something they had written up, like I say, oh man, this thing's due tomorrow. I mean, teacher's going to be mad. Maybe I better go ahead and just put something together. And that's what it looked like. So this lack of effort wasn't just in the interviewing of the witnesses. It just seems to emanate everywhere in this. Kevin, do you have any insights into that? I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, this office is just a culture of corruption. And remember that the state always is the advantaged side. I mean, the conviction rate in Wisconsin is somewhere around 98%. So the prosecution rarely has to prepare and do a good job to secure guilty verdicts. And then Binger and Krause losing their very next trials, both sexual assault, is absolutely unheard of. Because they thought, okay, we have the DNA evidence for these sexual assaults. what else do we need? Do we need to prep? No. I'll go over to Binger's and hang out in his hot tub instead. It's
He
just
hung out
not,
in his hot tub, like
yeah.
that actually. Okay, wait a second. No.
So
I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm not going there.
They're used to the judges rubber stamping everything. The judges for the most part are pro-state, except for Schrader, which is pretty evident. He's a fair judge, but they're used to just winning everything all the time. And let's face it, a lot of these defendants are guilty, right? Usually the police do a good job of presenting enough evidence to say, hey, this guy did that or this girl did that. But in this case, you just have a culture where they're just used to winning and they're used to having all the pretrial motions on their side. So, I mean, that explains it right there. They just, maybe they thought they had this case wrapped up, but, that they didn't need to do all this work. Or maybe they knew they weren't going to win, so they didn't put in the work.
That was the
By the
thought
way,
I
I should
had.
mention that Binger, in a recent interview, admitted that perhaps his persona was so negative that the jury acquitted a sexual assault rape suspect.
And remember, Johnny, I talked to some jurors. I talked to jurors for those trials. And, just with any other trial other than the Rittenhouse trial, the witnesses lists are available right away. So I went to the courthouse. I printed out the witness list. I went down the list and called them. And I'm not going to use their names or their ages, but I talked to a woman who basically said, we all recognized Binger as this guy on TV who prosecuted Rittenhouse, and we didn't trust him.
Huh.
We didn't trust the things that he was saying. And so that just shows you, now these two guys who were accused of sexual assault, maybe they were guilty and now they're walking. Maybe they're going to go victimize somebody else because this prosecutor's office is so damaged by these two idiots that now justice is going to escape the clutches of, consequence. And that's my fear.
I think it reminds me of a scene from Good Morning Vietnam where this general's saying, I'm friends with Richard Nixon, but I wouldn't buy an apple from the son of a bitch. It's just, if you have a point where somebody is just, they both come off and exude such slime, that's going to be a real problem. It's great for people like Zeminski, but it's not great for the people of Kenosha. Now, the next one is a question from the audience, and then there's also an audience question that's similar to one that Johnny wanted to ask. And so then after that, we're going to go back to Paul. But first, I'm going to put this one to Nathan first and then to Grambo. But the question is, if you could go back in time and do anything, just do everything all over again that night, what would it be as far as the night of the shooting? Mm-hmm. Is there anything you would change about what you did? If you could do it all over again.
No, because I'm actually really happy I captured what I did. In my opinion, the evidence that I provided really helped the case. So I'm glad that I got to show the world kind of behind the scenes, because the big box media definitely was not showing what I was showing.
That's a powerful feeling, isn't it, that you were able to do some good?
That is, and to be honest, when I obviously I didn't know anyone involved while I was taking these photos or anything like that. When the case blew up and they identified Kyle with his identity and stuff like that, when I was going through my photos and I saw the graffiti, him cleaning graffiti off of my old high school, I said, "There's no way that's him," and it was, and that photo just blew up.
Hey, I gotta ask though, you know that guy in the black hoodie with the pistol was Joshua Zeminski, right? Did you want to change anything about your statement? Okay, so Grambo, same question. If you could do anything different that night, or rather, if you had to do it all again, would you change anything about what you did that night?
Well, I thought about if I could have stopped Kyle from going out, him being, a young man. I didn't know that he was only 17. I thought he was 18 or 19. If I could have stopped him from going down there with them guys, I would have. I would have told him to. Or I think I would have went with him and stayed with him. Because I don't think I hate to think that I could have prevented something, because I think everything happens for a reason. Whether this is to expose the media or what, but everything does happen for a reason. But I wish I would have went down there, because I would have stuck on that kid like glue. He's just too young, and just like the BLM protesters, they're just too young to be mixed in that shit. So that's basically the only thing. Other than I wish I could redo the trial, because I had some zingers for Binger, and I was restraining
feel free to
myself.
say them.
I'd have to go over the testimony, but there were some things that were in my head, like, oh Lord, girl, don't open your mouth, don't say that. And
So we gotta plug Nate real quick. So Nate, if somebody wants an autographed picture like this, explain to the viewers how they get one of those. One of these.
For a personally signed photo, you can reach out to me per my email address at photosbynated@gmail.com. If you want to just purchase a photo that's not signed, you can go photosbynated.com. Also, I do have a merchandise line that just went up. By the website name for that would be merch by photosbynated.com. So I do have shirts up there to be purchased.
All right.
And
We'll try to
if
get
you-
earlier about a good picture you have of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've heard of a good picture you have of Rosenbaum standing in front of like flames with a chain in his hand. Is that one of the ones that's available?
Yes. I
Sounds like a movie cover.
have a big version actually right here.
Oh, he's got it on hand, guys.
I don't know how far I can.
Oh wow.
The lighting's
yeah,
terrible.
pictures.
No, that looks good.
Had pictures on hand for the trial, like so. Yeah, obviously we'll have them here too,
So now,
by the way, just
go ahead then.
Yeah, Nate, could I just quickly ask you, basically, what was the thought process? Because you brought in your own exhibits and stuff like that. Was it like, oh yeah, this could really help them, or this shows the truth, or what was behind that?
He brings his own exhibits to the podcast, man.
Go
ahead.
Thought behind that was really because the photo that I was showing personally in the meeting with the district attorney just before the trial, the photo that was shown to me was my photo, but it was really blowing up and it was so distorted.
Right.
And it was printed on regular paper, and I'm like, I know it's my photo, but like it doesn't 100% look like my photo, how like the quality. And so like instead of having it printed out on a little piece of paper you print from your printer, I had it blowing up so like you could see details. You could see the marks on the chain. You could see the marks on his shoes. Like
I think you missed a marketing opportunity there. You should have put there the name of your site, like on the pictures, like, oh, exhibit 1, exhibit 2,
And honestly, I had no intentions of, I never marketed them before. I had one person that reached out to me and bought a photo prior to that, one that didn't have anything to do with the trial, so they could use it in a book of theirs. Other than that, until Kraus actually accused me of trying to market or I'm there to market my thing or my whatever my line, I just thought that was pretty funny because I didn't. And until I literally received hundreds of emails in like 2-3 days, hundreds, I said, you know what, I need to take this opportunity for the money, and I'm sticking with it, and we'll see where the future takes it.
And at that time, Nate hadn't really been. I mean, he witnessed people dying, but he wasn't attacked by the prosecution. He didn't in front of millions of people, I might add. So his circumstances changed a little bit. And I told Nate, I said, dude, you need to. People are going to want to buy these pictures. You're talented. And so on my article, I said, hey, if you want to buy some of these pictures or you want to help Nathan's legal fund, send me an email, thinking maybe a few people would email me. And I got myself several emails, and I just kept forwarding them over to Nate saying, hey, and I'm like, Nate, you need to set up a website, man. I said, there's a demand for your talent. And so this was not Nate thinking, how can I make money out of this? I mean, I told him, I said, look, you have to reach into your own pocket to pay for an attorney once, maybe twice. You need to do what you can to try to recuperate some of this money, because it's not fair. And then especially after the trial, seeing how he was treated, I just take joy in knowing that some good comes from this. And so people all around the world are ordering these pictures, right, Nate?
Yes, I've sent pictures to
any orders from the Czech Republic or no?
I have sent photos to the UK, Ireland, Australia, Scotland, all over. People have reached out, and I'm very grateful for that. And like Kevin said, I mean, a lot of this is because of him. And I couldn't believe it when he started forwarding me emails. It wasn't just one or two. It went to 2 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up and I still had 20 new ones, and it was unbelievable. And I'm very grateful for that.
So the next question that is also kind of reflective of the one that Johnny wanted to ask. So it's from Eva Likes Red. It says, to Grambo and Photo Chad, how did your testimonies affect your personal lives? The jury was protected, but you are public. What do your communities think of all this? You know, I guess it's kind of a question of like, how did it change your life personally? And I guess since Nathan talked last, we'll start with Grambo and then we'll go to Nathan.
It really hasn't. I don't know. I don't like all the hype. So I kind of hid myself a little bit more. I usually just go out shopping because I take my mom shopping every week. So it's just grocery shopping for me. I was a bit nervous about going back to work. I hope everybody knew already who I was, and it was turning out that way. I just had one gentleman approach me in the grocery store, and it was weird because my mom wasn't there. It was shopping alone, which isn't common. Like I said, I always take her shopping. And that day it was really eerie because I felt eyes on me the whole time. I mean, you know, when people look at you, I'm not a paranoid person. I kind of don't give a shit if you're staring at me, but it happened to be one of those days where the eyes were on me, and it's like, oh, okay, shit, now they're recognizing me. And you just don't want to be confronted. I don't want to make a scene anywhere. But I'm going to stand up for myself, goddammit. But I had a gentleman run around the corner of an aisle and come up to me and I had my hands on a shopping cart, and he went to touch my hand, and then he stopped, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. He goes, I just want to say thank you. He's like, thank you for standing up, and thank you for testifying in the trial and standing up for Kyle. And just thank you. So I just stuck my hand out, and he shook my hand, and I was just like, well, that was weird. You know, it's like I said, I'm just not used to it. It was a bit uncomfortable. And then I just went about my shopping, and I did catch him. He went around another aisle, and he looked at me, and he just real giddily went, I just can't believe I met you here. And I'm just like, oh, okay, keep that under your hat, because there's a lot of people who probably aren't excited to see me. He's like, I understand.
Well, sometimes people, if you're a public figure, they'll stare at you, but just because they're trying to figure out if they actually identify you, and then they can't get up the nerve to say anything. Sorry, go ahead.
No, there was one lady, she was older than me, so I don't know if that was a scenario, but she was, from my toes to the top of my head, was just vigorously staring and checking out the whole thing, and I'm staring right at her eyes and waiting for her eyes to meet mine, and I'm like, bring it on, woman, what you got to say? And when she got to my eye, she did like another once quick over and then turned her shopping cart and kept moving, and just like, you know, I thought to myself, you're going to have to face it. You know, just like with the trial. I knew I was going to trial. You're going to have to testify. So I was real calm until the moment I had to walk into the courtroom. But it's the same thing out there. It's like, I know I'm going to have to face it, so let's just face it and get it over with. I'm not one to really sit and hide, but I'm more of a personal.
And that's the thing, Ann, you're kind of, you live a quiet life, right?
Yes, very.
So I mean, that's the thing is, I think if Anne lived in Kenosha, and if she, were socially super active in this area, the celebrity would hit her more, because there's not many people who don't know who Grambo is. But the fact that her life is so quiet, she's not really exposed to that. So that's why we got to get you out to Kenosha, and we got to let you do your little victory lap.
I think the fact that she doesn't do social media might have a lot to do with it too, because she's not really seeing the impact beyond like her own personal interactions. So Nathan, I know that
before we go on there,
no, go ahead.
And there was an altercation that you mentioned to me yesterday when we talked privately. Did you want to bring that one up? It sounded pretty serious.
Oh, you mean at work?
Yeah, I think it was at work.
Yeah.
If you don't want to mention it, then that's fine.
No, that's fine. We have upper management by us. Well, when I got to work the next morning after testifying, I just pulled in with my vehicle, and he sat there. It's like, well, let's just get her done. So I got out of the vehicle and walked into work, and I was just waiting, and I went and set my desk up and was walking down through the production shop, and I had a gentleman approach me that I work with regularly. He's a decent guy. Had approached me and said, "So I hear you're a celebrity." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I really don't want to get into it. I did what I thought was right." And he says, "You don't understand. My wife was in Minnesota when the George Floyd incident happened." And I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that." He goes, "Well, what I'd like to know is, why do all the Trumpers get to hit protesters with paintballs? And that's all right, but we're not allowed to protest." And I said, whoa, wait a minute. I says, "Why does everybody that is against protesting have to be a Trumper?" And he kind of looked at me and he says, "Well, they were Trumpers. They had a flag." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, wait a minute. There's a lot of Americans, right, left, or center, that have flags, and they're not Trumpers. So I don't get why anybody that is against the protest has to be a Trumper." And he sat there and he thought about it a little bit. He said, "Well, I guess you're right." And I says, "Yeah, I guess there's a lot that we need to talk about." He is a very decent guy. We work together really well. But everybody's putting these, I'm sorry, I can't think of the term, but just because you carry a flag, you're a racist or you're a Trumper. And that's not necessarily true. That you can be right, left, center, independent, whatever. You love your country and you support your country. That's how I was brought up. You don't have to have that political view. It doesn't have to be associated with your country. Just like with voting, I pick the best man. But that was my confrontation at work. And, like I said, I'm going to stand up for myself. I don't have to be categorized because I don't like something. And neither does anybody else because they don't like it. They don't have to be categorized. There's opportunists on both sides. There's opportunists on the right. There's opportunists on the left. So let's stop with categorizing everybody as a Trumper or a Democrat, because it's bullshit.
I want to take a moment.
Paul, can you tell us about the last time you voted for Trump?
Yeah.
About you too, Neil.
What I was going to say real quick was just that, first of all, I'm going to take a moment to plug Mary Todd if you want to see the truth about who gets hit with paintballs and who doesn't. But the reality is that Antifa wants the flag and anything patriotic to be labeled fascist. And the reason for that is because the cure to ideological subversion is patriotism. And that's why they have to label it as something evil. That's why, and by ideological subversion, again, I'm talking about Soviet strategies to destroy a country from the inside. But as far as and it's not even just them. Like, there was a Bernie supporter who got beaten brutally by Antifa. Like, they opened a wound on the back of his head, and he was carrying a flag. So they went after him for it. But getting back to the original question, so Nathan, again, I know that we've talked a little bit about the issue regarding how your personal life has been impacted by by being in the trial. Obviously, you could share that. Is there anything new as well that's happened since the trial, in your participation and how you've been treated?
Honestly, since this whole trial took place, my life's totally changed. And what I mean by that is I had to take an unpaid leave from work. That's how it started. And it started because of two reasons mainly. My job entitles me to go to to service a lot of different types of stores. So I'm not in one location throughout the day. I'm in multiple locations throughout the day. And going into one of those locations, someone recognized me. I have to wear a face mask due to the requirements from my job, but I also have to wear a name badge that has my picture and also my first and last name in big letters on it. Someone recognized me, and I could tell that they were staring at me. Soon after that, the lady came up to me and started well, she didn't yell at me at first. She said, "You're that guy that was on the trial." And I said, "I am." And she says, "You support a murderer." And then she got her husband.
Motherfuckers.
She got her husband. I found out later. I thought it was just another guy. It was her husband. They like got in front of me and started screaming that I support a murderer. And I was briefed by my upper management if any type of a situation happens, to just leave. Well, when that happens, I don't get paid. But I did leave for my safety, and it just brought so much. It brings up so much anxiety for me for my safety. I've had my car damaged. I've had a lot of stuff that's cost me quite a bit of money. And I'm grateful that a lot of people help me because it goes directly to that. However, there's some things I do want to stop. Like even when I was traveling to California, I was screamed at in the airport. They specifically said, F you, photo Chad. And it's just like, you can have different views on how this whole case went down, but look at the actual facts. Don't believe something that didn't happen. And don't get mad at me for speaking the truth. I didn't have a choice but to go up on that stand.
Yeah, and here's the thing: you didn't want to. Did you want to be there, Nate?
I really did not want to be up on the stand. No.
That's the part that's messed up. Is like you just told the truth, so that's why you must be attacked.
And I mean, that's where. And then I knew after being on the stand, like I struggled watching the shooting when it originally happened, but like things kind of faded away. I didn't pay no attention. I told myself, you know what, I don't want to watch the media coverage, nothing like that. And I didn't until I got subpoenaed later on in the year, and then I had to have that district attorney's meeting. And then what made it way worse is when I went up on the stand and the way I got treated up on the stand, and a lot of people look at me now differently, and it caused a lot of anxiety. I was just diagnosed with PTSD a few weeks ago. I did get put on short-term disability benefits. And let me tell you, those benefits are very, very little. You could never survive. Nobody could survive on these benefits that I'm receiving. But the main thing I'm grateful for is I still have my health insurance that I can go get help. And I am in therapy currently. And I am on hopefully the road to recovery. And because I can't sleep at night, I sleep 2 hours at a time and I wake up. I'm always tired. That's why you always see me drinking soda now. I've lost a lot of weight. I lost 15 pounds since the trial.
Nate, so
you're in different types of ways.
Your short-term disability did get approved, though, right?
Kevin, if you can change your microphone.
Your mic sounds weird. We heard you, but you sound echoey. Not echoey, but like there's a.
How's this better?
Yeah, way better, way better. There we go. Go ahead. Yeah.
So your short-term disability did get approved, Nate?
It did just get approved, yes.
Okay,
yes.
good. What's the sunset on that? Do we know?
What do you mean? What's the sunset?
Like how long does that last?
As of right now, it is till it's like the first week of February, I want to say.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Neil, or not, sorry, Nathan, did you have a Give, Send, Go set up or something like that at one point?
I do, and it did reach the goal. And I'm not the type of person to ask for help. And I see a lot of comments from my Twitter and different media saying just keep upping it. I don't want the image to come off that I'm greedy or anything like that. But I'm grateful for each and every person that has donated to me, because that's what's getting me through. Because on top, you got to remember, I still have bills, cell phone bills, all types of bills that I still have to get paid, which they're all getting paid. I have money right now, but that money is going through quickly with my car payments and other
I would
necessities.
really recommend if you could put that link to the Give, Send, Go. Nobody here is going to be thinking that at all.
Yeah, you need to up your you need to put your, because it's going to be, people are going to be less likely to donate if they see that your goal has been met, because they assume that you're good, when really that might not be the case, right? I would recommend
Correct.
you. No one's going to hold that against you, and if they do, fuck them.
And I do still have some lawyer fees that will be occurring within the next couple of weeks due to the Zeminski trial.
And I will be there, Nate. Don't worry.
So
get some good shots.
I will.
Continue to report for the people of Kenosha. Paul, you've been like stewing over there, man. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, Knife, if you could write in the private chat, your address for either the Give, Send, Go or, like for your website, so we can put it, right there. But I just, you ain't a confrontational person, right? You usually, rather sidestep problems than to go through them, correct?
If you actually look at all the footage that someone on my Twitter actually gave, like a lot of the images that were used in court, someone with a lot of time on their hands found like all with me taking all those images from like across the streets, and they all put them together, and it'll show you I'm always by myself, and like I wasn't there to cause any trouble. I wasn't there.
Yeah, that's on your Twitter.
That's not what I mean. I was rather asking, when you were confronted on that, like at your work or something like that, by that lady, because what a fucking bitch. I'm sorry, for cursing a wee bit, but it's just
my channel can handle
like
it.
You just said the truth, like nothing else. You weren't lying, you just said how it was, and they accuse you of helping a murderer. Okay, fine, you might think that Kyle was a murderer, fine, but still, the truth speaks for itself, you know what I mean? And Absolutely. Just, your fucking car vandalized and all that shit, what in the actual fuck, people, whoever is doing that, shame on you! It's not okay. This man just said it, truth and, nothing else.
And I love this guy's passion. I love your passion, Paul. And I totally agree with you.
Yeah, if you can handle that, then you seriously need to adjust your perspective, you know what I mean? You need to adjust your position, because that is not okay. What do you want him to do? Fucking lie under oath? Would you do that? And if you would do that, that probably says something about you. Jesus fucking Christ.
I will also say that the prosecutor, Krause, and his demeanor towards Nathan, I think was part of what turned the tide against the prosecution, although they were never really in good shape to begin with. But, people on the jury had to have been thinking, this is a pretty cool dude. What the hell's wrong with this prosecutor? I mean, he's acting like they've had a lifelong grudge or something like that. And do you have any comments on that, Nathan? The demeanor that he kind of displayed towards you?
I do believe, he had a grudge for me. And I think that's what made it harder for me, because I wasn't expecting to be treated like that, per se. Because I went there giving the truth. There was no cloudiness. It was the truth. I had images to prove what I was saying. It was the truth. So I didn't think I was going to be treated like I was the bad guy, per se. up on the stand. And then being the type of a trial that it was, being a murder trial, half of my cross-examination wasn't about the murder trial.
Right.
It's Kevin.
And they didn't even ask you your
It's
opinion,
that damn
too.
gossip blogger.
Yeah.
It is actually Kevin's turn next, so then I'll go last. So go ahead, Kevin.
So, what are we just doing? Any questions we
If
want?
you
for
had
these
any
two?
questions or I guess commentary that perhaps you'd like to get from them about anything?
Skip me and go. I'll come back to me.
Oh,
Let me
right.
think about that.
Well then, so my next question is,
Hold on a second. I'd
go
like
ahead,
to
go ahead.
respond to Paul. So, Paul, I've felt your anger and I feel your passion, because when Nathan had told me the same thing, I just wanted to fucking ride along with him when he went to his next sales order. It's like, let me handle that broad for you. I was pissed off, but I want to let everybody know that I'll do whatever I can to help Nathan, and even if that's helping to protect
I really
him.
appreciate it.
Hell yeah. So
like my anger, like a lot of comes, from simply I was, basically a target of online abuse, like whatever, I can take it and stuff like that. But, I don't know, like other journalists that covered this topic, and they were just saying truth. They were just showing evidence, nothing else. Oh yeah, you are a right winger, you are a neo-Nazi, you are supporting a murderer and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, I'm just showing what happened. You make your own mind, like you do with that information what you will. In my first video, I showed, who was the first shooter. I didn't identify him by name, but I was like, hey, this guy, that was the first shooter, meaning, Mr. Zeminski. And that wasn't known at the time. And I was accused, that I'm a neo-Nazi and stuff like that. And I was like, what? I'm just saying, hey, that guy, he shot first. That's it. Do with it what you will. And just this insanity. And I'm telling you, I've seen something like that throughout history. And for example, in the history of my country, with communists, or to be honest, also Nazis, that was precisely, the rhetoric that was being used in the media and by the people to silence the truth.
And that kind of plays into the comment I wanted to make before I ask my question, but it is that the analogy I frequently use, specifically when it comes to politics the way it is now, is that there's a lack of maturity. And what it is that it reminds me of playing a sport, say in middle school gym class, where maybe the gym teacher incorrectly calls a point for your team, and your whole team knows that ball was out. But you're not going to say anything because you want to win. And if anybody else in the team starts to speak up and go, wait a second, they'll go, shut up, man, shut up. At the end of the day, they know the ball was out. And so they're going to go after anybody that's saying that the ball is out because they want to win. That's why it comes back to what I said when we got started, like that girl from The Real said, well, to me, it's about the ideology, and we have to be concerned about the ideology. The other thing she openly said was that, this is going to be a problem for protests. And she kept saying we have a right to peacefully protest. And they're still maintaining that this was a peaceful protest after all this time. And it's just fundamentally ridiculous. But people still believe that. And then they'll keep repeating it because they really want to believe that. They really want that to be the truth. Now,
hey, Neil, I would also like to use my own analogy. And I always talk about the evidence box. And that is that this is a secret box that contains the truth about whether the defendant is guilty or not. And we're talking, of course, about Kyle Rittenhouse. And let's suppose that these people got a hold of the box and they knew that the truth was going to set Kyle free. Do you think they would have turned that over to the police?
No, absolutely not.
They would have buried it. They would have buried it in the backyard because, and I'll say this, they wanted Kyle convicted. They didn't care if he was guilty or not, because this was a political deal. They looked upon this as a political game. This would have, and really it was more about tearing the hearts out of the right than it was about, anything about justice at all. So they want to win these arguments on Twitter and also feel good about their own ideological identities they don't care if they send some kid off to a life sentence. And I think this also extends to Binger and Krause as well. Deep down, I think they know that he was innocent, but they really, really wanted that kid convicted because it would score for them, their own professional lives, and it would twist the knife in the right.
And here's the thing too: the jury instructions. You are to decide the guilt or innocence based on what the law is, not what you think the law ought to be. Yep. And too many people think that they should be deciding this case as activist jurors. Well, maybe what he did was not illegal, but you should have convicted him anyways. It's just nonsense that goes against the core of our country in the justice system. It's nonsense.
Well, I would say it goes actually deeper because there's gigantic hypocrisy that I notice, and they would be completely fine with Kyle's actions if he would be on their side. Like everything that he did would be a-okay if he would be on their side, and they say, behind this I will stand. You know what I mean? That is observation that I made throughout the last year and a half, and that is very worrisome because it indicates, truly a conflict mentality, in your country where you have a real split between two camps, and you can't talk to each other basically. Like those true zealots, you know what I mean? On each side, and the camps are getting pushed further and further apart. It's really scary.
Right, and it comes back to what that lady said. She in the reel, she kept saying it's about the politics and the ideology, and that kind of plays into what they say they want to switch to community justice. Well, basing that off of what Johnny just pointed out, what do you think community justice would have been for Kyle Rittenhouse? And in the same way, they also want people to be innocent. Like they want Jussie Smollett to be innocent. That Black Lives Matter still supports that he's supposedly innocent. That guy's as guilty as a cat in a goldfish bowl.
Wait until Crystal Kaiser comes up for trial. You're going to see all of these arguments that they were using to try to convict Kyle Rittenhouse are going to now switch 180 degrees. So now all of a sudden, the carrying of an illegal gun, that's not important. She was defending herself with it. You're going to see it.
Right, no, for sure. Now, to get to the question I wanted to ask the guests was, I have to say it's kind of an honor and a privilege, but at the same time to ask the two of you, especially Grambo, mainstream media asked you to come on their broadcasts, and I was the one who got the interview first, and obviously you're on this one instead, and I guess what I would get at is that the two of you, you made the decision to come on broadcasts like this instead of on mainstream media. How have you been treated by mainstream media in comparison to the way you're being treated on a panel like this? And, what is it that made you feel you trusted alternative media over mainstream media? And I guess we'll start with Joanne.
Yeah, Neil, you're sounding a little sick there, buddy.
I am.
a little stuffed up. Mm-hmm. So Neil, I'm sorry to burst that bubble, but actually Kevin was the first one to interview me.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm just saying I'm glad you're on any of our stuff. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So Kevin's now mainstream media? Wow.
Well, he just did an article on me in the Kenosha County Eye, which, by the way, Kevin, was wrong in the end.
What was wrong?
I'd have to read it again. Something, I think you said the wrong name. The wrong name in the end.
Damn it, Grambo, I let you see the draft before I published it.
I know, but we changed the ending, but then you still got it wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's talk later. I'm just getting called fake news live. Thanks, Grambo. Gee.
Well, what do you expect from an expired wedding photographer, I guess.
Yeah. But I guess the essence of the question for the two of you is just to come back to why did you choose to come on our media rather than mainstream media?
Well, CNN, believe it or not, when I was driving home from testifying, I saw, and I don't remember where I saw it on, or if somebody posted it on our little Patriot Messenger group we have, but CNN said I spewed hateful and racist comments. That's the headline I saw, and I thought, oh fuck, here we go, But then I think Kevin was the first one to reach out to me, and I was very hesitant. I didn't want to talk to anybody. You have to understand, I have my mother to worry about. I didn't want anybody coming here. I was more concerned for her. I do have very good neighbors. We do all take care of each other, and yeah, they're all armed. My mother just reminded me, including my mother,
Great Grambo.
yeah, who is now great Grambo. She's also armed, and we're very well trained. So, Kevin reached out to me, and I didn't even know who he was. And just going back to a quick story, I'll make it real quick. When I was headed down to Kenosha, what I had in my mind as to what we were going to do was absolutely nothing as to what it turned out to be when we got there. So, and I had never been to anything like this. So after reviewing who Kevin was, he told me who he was. I looked him up and stuff. I thought, okay, this is a local guy. He was there every night. I trust him. And Neil, with you, I got a recommendation from a friend of mine who's a private eye, and it's like, okay, and so I went and checked out you too, and it's like, okay, I'll do him. So, sorry, I shouldn't say it that way, but I'll go on his show.
It's all right. And I knew what you meant.
Yeah.
I didn't. Let's explore that.
I found it was very freeing to talk about it because I did have it pent up. I was concerned. Mostly, I was worried about my mom and stuff, but it actually helped. It helped me quite a bit. So, like I said, I was called an iron marshmallow because I'm very hard to get to, but once you get inside, it is all soft and squishy, but try to get through that wall. So it was very hard for me to actually open up about it, but I'm glad I did. So that's awesome. How I got here.
Same question, awesome. Nathan. How have you been treated, by the mainstream media as opposed to, coming on shows like this? And, do you feel that it's been more rewarding, obviously, to just be able to be yourself?
Yeah. Especially, I did have CNN reach out to me and trying to get me on some morning show, but I didn't even reply back to his message. Nice. But other than that, I choose to speak the truth, and I feel not all big box media really actually cares for the truth. They are in it for the money. So if they can control that whole situation to where it can benefit them, and they can run with the narrative to profit off of that. I think that's what they do, and I'm not about that. I'm about speaking the truth and 100% of the facts.
It's interesting that I'm going to make a follow-up comment, and then it's interesting that we have to do this ourselves. That's why work like Kevin's is so important for the people of Kenosha. And all the work that we've been doing, is a commitment to the truth. And what you pointed out kind of brings it back to what media has become, which is another analogy I keep using, is that there was a time, and actually there wasn't just me, somebody put this on Twitter and I retweeted it, but it was like, do you remember those days that there was a time when pro wrestling was actually real wrestling, and then it stopped being real wrestling and nobody cared and they kept watching? That's what the media has become. That's what the news has become. That's what politics has become. And it's unfortunate, but at the same time, it means that citizen journalists like us need to step up. And those of you who are listening, once again, need to support it if you want it to go anywhere. The fact that I can't even run an ad for my interview means that, somebody is annoyed with the fact that mainstream media can't get their hands on these interviews, go ahead.
And I can tell you a little quick story too. Also, just before I got this gift send go up, I actually was in a battle with GoFundMe for days, literally days, because they would not approve my fundraiser, and because it had to do with the Rittenhouse trial, and it honestly still to this day it's still pending, and I never was able to get it approved. So just the politics that these companies play, it's incredible because they can ruin somebody's life.
Meanwhile, they approved
Yeah,
the
man.
Daryl Brooks GoFundMe for the guy who ran his SUV into a parade,
When-
and it took
Yes.
4 days for them to
Fucking
take it
kidding me?
down. They finally took it down, but it
Oh.
took days.
But keep in mind also Crystal Kaiser's is it Gibson Go or GoFundMe? Hers is still up, and you know what? I mean, she hasn't been tried yet, so she could be very well be innocent. But notice that they're giving her tons of benefit of the doubt on this, but they don't give any to like Kyle, even though both are going up for murder. Well, of course,
Or
Kyle's
Nate,
trial is
Nate
over.
was a neutral party.
Yeah, I
I mean,
know exactly. I mean,
Of course, Nate has his personal beliefs. We all have our personal beliefs on how we think something should turn out or shouldn't turn out, but his role was a neutral witness and he didn't want to be there, right? And Nate right now, if he really wanted to, could be writing this. If he would have done that CNN interview, he would have gotten calls from Fox News, all the stations. He could have done a whole tour of media if he wanted to. But guess what? He decided not to because he's not in it for the politics. He's not in it he's in it involuntarily, first of all. But what is he doing now? He's just trying to pursue his dream. He's spending time with his family. He could have, if I was in Photo Chad's shoes, I'd probably be all over the media circuit talking about how I was treated and how terrible it was and they should be disbarred. But he didn't, and that's a testament to his character. So having somebody get mad at Nate is baffling because, yeah, go ahead and hate me, or somebody who expresses opinion, but or go ahead and hate Grambo if you want. But we have thick skin. Grambo carries a 45, so in her purse. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's messed up.
So I wanted to ask one of the other, or actually, I'm going to make a comment that was selected from the chat that I think is interesting. Then I'm going to ask everybody's impression on it. But Binger, in his post-trial interviews, which I wanted to ask what you guys thought of that, but I feel badly because I haven't even had a chance to listen to it yet myself. But Binger, in his post-trial interviews, reveals a deep disagreement with what the laws are. He prosecuted Kyle to make a political point, not to seek justice. Scary. So as if his problem is with the laws themselves. And I mean, even Richard said he doesn't think people should be able to walk around with an AR-15. But I guess the point is that if you prosecute something like this because you want to change the laws, like you think it's going to have an effect on the legislature, let's just put an innocent kid's life in danger because you have some kind of political point to make. So I guess let's just start the circle up again, starting with you, Johnny. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, let me go ahead and pass up to somebody else because I want to kind of formulate my thoughts here first.
You got it. Go ahead. Nathan, do you have any thoughts about prosecuting somebody specifically because you want to change the laws?
Can you repeat the question again?
Sure.
Sorry, I was trying
basically,
to do the finishing touches.
Binger has been, no, it's fine. Binger has been
Mom?
heard on his own interviews saying that he went ahead and prosecuted Kyle specifically because he doesn't agree with the gun laws. And that was one of his motives, is he's hoping that gun laws will change as a consequence of this trial. So he basically put a kid's life in jeopardy for his own political points. And also, if you had any comments about any of Binger's interview, like I said, I haven't listened to it. That'd be a good segue.
The only thing I would really comment is if you have a conflict of interest or a personal belief that's real strong that would sway your outcome of whatever, if it's a trial or case or whatever, you shouldn't be a part of that. Just because your personal belief is you want something changed, being that you have that much power and that an attorney or a district attorney can
Mom, you have to stop talking.
to pick their cases, and for say he wanted to change gun laws, so he picks Kyle to want to try to change his case, where someone's life shouldn't be gambled on someone's belief because they want some gun laws to be changed. I feel that that's not right. There should have been if he feels that strong on gun laws, maybe he shouldn't have been that prosecutor on that case. Because ultimately, if you're that strong on an opinion, you're probably going to lean in your opinion. And that's not necessarily right for someone that is innocent of a crime.
And that's a good point. I hate to step in here, but I listened to those interviews, and Binger, just to correct the record, we don't want to be fake news here. Binger didn't say, so Joy gave her kind of opinion of how she interpreted what Binger said, but Binger didn't say this verbatim. So I don't want people to accuse us of getting the facts, because I watched all those. What Binger said was, a lot of people ask, why me? Why was I chosen? He said, because this issue, something, I forgot exactly what he said, but basically that this is a strong issue that I believe in, something like that. So that's a good point that Nate made, is if it's something you feel so strongly about, and you really want the law to change, and, House Binger told this guy on this podcast that he is a concealed carry weapons holder and he carries a gun.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe.
Yeah.
Me too.
I find it easy to believe, because it's one of those laws for thee and not for me. Binger's getting death threats just like people who support Kyle. And guess what? He knows this, the most effective way for somebody to protect themselves is getting death threats is to carry a fucking gun. He knows that. Yeah, he gave Grambo shit on the stand, and Kyle and Ryan Balk and all these guys. Why'd you need to carry a gun? Well, why do you carry a gun? Yeah. You metrosexual tool. It's because he knows it's the most effective thing. He's not stupid, right? He's an idiot, but he's not stupid. So he knows the way to keep himself protected from, I don't like people I don't like that people are threatening Binger, threatening his life. Call him a dingbat, right? But don't threaten his life. That's screwed up.
And it gives more, unfortunately, credence to the ridiculous conspiracy theory nonsense they have about all people on the right anyway.
Exactly.
That's one of the reasons, ironically, as somebody who leans left, I keep telling these people, the crap you're doing is doing a fantastic job of proving every racist and every bigot right. You're going out and destroying things and profiling yourself as a violent criminal. I just played a video because I got an extended version of that guy getting hit in the face, getting his jaw broken, trying to defend his furniture store. And everybody paid attention to the video part. What they didn't catch, which I think is almost more important, was Black Lives Matter protesters justifying what just happened to this old man on the basis that you don't understand. You need to understand. These people aren't making it home to their families. These men are terrified. Like, you were so terrified that you went into this guy's store and then you knocked him out and broke his jaw, and then they're like, how about respect? Respect. How about that? I'm like, so who's giving you respect for knocking out and breaking the jaw of an elderly man? Which type of person do you want respect from? Because all they did at that point was literally create something for a highlight reel for an actual white supremacist who wants to recruit people. And I've talked to them, and they think this stuff is great. Like the Nazi Party, the KKK, they're like, yep, keep doing that. You see, you guys are making us look smart. Keep at it. And obviously I don't agree with those people, but that's all that's happening because of this stupid behavior. It's hurting them. But anyway, go ahead, Johnny.
Oh, sorry. I should mention that Binger's done 2 post-trial interviews. I've done reaction videos to both of them. The second one, I gave up about a third of the way through. He made me so sick to my stomach, I just quit on it. So at any rate, if you're wanting to actually hear about what Binger actually said, go to my channel. Of course, you're on my channel probably already, but I do have 2 videos on Binger's post,
and which is funny. So technically he did, 3. So he talked to he talked to the Chicago Tribune. Oh, so let's call that a media interaction, whatever. Remember, so 3 times he talked to the media a week after he said he was prohibited by ethical rules from talking to the media. So that just shows you the hypocrisy of this douchebag we called Claire.
This is after him telling us everybody he wasn't going to do one, and I think he wasn't going to do one immediately following the trial because it was humiliating, and now it just seems he's trying to turn himself into a media darling for the people that
And I also should mention that this think sort of activism approach showed up earlier in the Guy Smith case. And I know that, Kevin, you're very familiar with this, but in this case here, he tried to put a truck driver in jail for basically having a gun in his cab of his semi. And it was clear from Wisconsin statutes that that truck driver could have that gun in his cab. He wanted to appeal that. He wanted to go forward with it to the point where the judge finally said, look, why don't we take a break? We'll come back on another day, and then you can talk it over with the defense. Of course, the defense finally convinced him, look, the law clearly allows for the gun to be in the cab. And you really have to be a real jackass to move forward like that. He wanted Guy Smith convicted not because of whether he was guilty, it was because he didn't think that law should be applied. Is that a pretty fair statement, Kevin?
Yeah, and just to add the cherry to the top, what he did was this case against Guy Smith was scheduled to go to trial on a Monday, right? His attorney was, I think, from Georgia.
Atlanta.
And so instead of dismissing the case on Friday or a month before, for fuck's sake, he dismissed it on the morning of trial. So his lawyer flew from Georgia, incurred all that hourly fee. You know, when you're flying interstate to represent somebody, there's a lot of billable hours there. And the morning of trial, he dismissed the case. So he got Guy where it mattered was his pocketbook. Thank God Wisconsin Carry Inc. was funding his defense, but that nonprofit now had to spend all that money for an attorney, even though it was going to be dismissed.
And I also point out, though, that one of the persons that's going to be impacted is the judge. The judge has a docket, and if he had known a lot earlier that this was going to be dropped, he could have cleared up his caseload, probably. And the judge, by the way, was Bruce Schroeder.
Yep.
I have a quick point about that. When is Bruce Schroeder up for re-election, and will this impact him?
This is Bruce. So I'm going to look it up for sure, but I think Bruce was elected a couple years ago. So I think he's around 2025. And there's kind of some hemming and hawing about he might not run again. So, I mean, he's got 4 years. That's 4 years of liberal tears, but that rhymes. Look at that. So if he runs again, he's going to get elected. I mean, in Wisconsin and Kenosha, you have this unwritten rule that you don't run against a sitting judge, which I don't like that rule, but that's kind of the rule. So I've lived in Kenosha since 2004. So 17 years, I've never seen a judge be challenged, which is fucked up. But that's just the unwritten rule, because if you run against a judge and you lose, what do you think is the possibility of you not getting good results now for your clients? It's messed up, but that's just how it is.
It's one of those elected positions that people don't even bother to research, and I hate to say it, that's true for me too. But like sheriff is the same way. I keep telling Black Lives Matter people, if you want to have an impact on policing, you should actually participate in your sheriff election. So Paul, did you want to ask that question that you just brought up, or did you have a different one?
No. It's just an interesting comment that I wanted to.
No, for sure. Did you have a question then?
Oh, rather a comment, and that is with Binger. I don't know if he said that, what he was accused here of saying, and that he wanted to change the law basically. But that was the feel I got out of him, throughout the whole trial, that he was charging Kyle rather on what he felt the law should be than what it actually was. And that is one thing. And where I would understand it, maybe, even though that's not technically his job, but if you would have, I don't know, some domestic abuser or something like that, someone who did something incredibly wrong. But the lunacy here is that Kyle, except of being stupid and naive and going out there and alone, that's his only mistake. But other than that, he didn't do anything wrong. As I said before, you protect your people. Kenosha was on fire, and Kevin can and Nathan can both attest to that. It was a fucking anarchy, And I just can't understand how anyone could have that position that you don't protect your people, while that someone is then, well, they don't consider those people that you are protecting as their people, and they cannot even understand how someone could perceive them as their people.
Well, that's
so that is a problem with Binger, you know.
When you peel away the layers and you get down to the very bare bottom of all of this, it's evident to me when you talk to the people that you argue with about this stuff that they secretly want it to be legal for rioters to riot, and they secretly want it to be okay for rioters to beat people up if they oppose them. And they're never going to openly tell you that, but you notice how all of them are dead silent about what happened to the guy in Portland like 2 weeks before Kyle. They're dead silent. Like, when I was arguing with Kevin Glowicki and, wrecking his face in my debate, one of the things I said is, do you even know the name of the man who got punched out and got his jaw broken? Why didn't you report on that? He was always like railing on me about how I didn't report enough. I'm like, why aren't you talking about this guy? You're telling me you oppose that stuff? You've never said a single word about him, and nor does anybody else. It's like secretly they don't want to openly state it, but they secretly believe that they're fighting for freedom somehow by destroying somebody's furniture store, and he should just let them do it.
Yeah,
that was part of the trial that when Binger was questioning me, and he brought up a comment about Rosenbaum being shot and Anthony Huber dying and about the justice. And in my head, the things that I was trying to tell myself not to say because I was getting angry was, one of them is, where is that man? And I knew his name, but I couldn't even remember it at the trial. A lot of my memory was just gone at the trial. I think the nerves hit me. But that was part of what I wanted to say. And I was telling myself, because I couldn't think of his name, was just don't even say it then. But where was his justice? What about the 71-year-old man that's suffering? Where's his justice? Who did anything for him? So I get what you're saying there. That was pissing me off. And nobody's doing anything about the good people that are injured. Who's protecting them? Who's standing up for them? Where's their justice?
Or the fact that was the environment. That's the environment. The environment was like that already. They all talk about it was. I'm sorry, going to shut up on my rant after this, but they all talk about the idea that it was wrong for people to show up with firearms. But to them, the chronology of events, for some reason, begins with people showing up with firearms, not with a man being knocked unconscious and buildings being burned down, not with a state of anarchy and lawlessness, as Schroeder pointed out in the beginning when they were discussing like the context of the situation. Their ability to understand the situation begins then, not with anything that was done ahead of time. And if you try to bring that up, they're like, well, they were protesting, the shooting of a black man. I'm like, yes, okay. Why does your behavior once again begin with that instead of why he was shot and what kind of person he was? And he wasn't a good person. He was a piece of human garbage. I just openly, and they can't argue with it. They don't want to argue with it. It's like you'll see them, they squirm in their chair about it. Jacob Blake was not some peaceful martyr. So in any case, Johnny, you had a question you wanted to ask.
Yeah. After the trial, there was a lot of talk about what Kyle's going to do. And of course, his attorney told him, I think advised him, look, keep a low profile, go to college, let this thing sort of blow over. Within a few years, few people will care that much because they'll have other things to worry about. There'll be other events that come up. He's acted quite the contrary. He's been on a number of shows, including like I think here, I'm trying to think of the names of some of the people, but I know that Kevin
Louder with Crowder,
and Schaefer, Elijah Schaefer.
Yep.
And then of course he went to this conference in Arizona that was, in my opinion, bizarre. He walked out with fireworks and there was a huge marquee. The screaming and squealing reminded me of a Beatles concert, and it was and I understand that this conference was aimed at mostly high school and college students. Okay, so they're not necessarily older people. But so my question to both of you is that how what let me just give you a really open-ended question. What's your opinions on Kyle post-trial? And again, this being recorded, so it's going to be able to be watched later. So I just want to remind everybody of that. Grambo, how about we start with you?
Well, I would hope that, Kyle would, talk to a few people. Like I said, from me talking, it helped. So I understand that. So should he talk to people? Yeah. Should it be this crazy? I think it's only going to hurt him. I mean, what happens when these bigwigs are done with him? I hope he's not being used. I hope it's not for, political movements. It just, I don't know. I'm not in his shoes, but he's a very young man, and he's, that comes with a lot of being naive. And I just hope he's being steered in the right way. I hope he understands that it's going to end. And then what do you do then? Because when shit like that ends, you sit there and you're like, I feel like I should be doing something, and you're not. So that's a lot of emotional stuff. So I don't know. I wish he would slow down. It would be nice to have a conversation with him. I have not talked to him, but it would be nice to have a conversation with him. Like I said, he was a nice kid when I talked to him that night. We had a really good conversation. So it would be good to talk to him again.
Yeah, you had a lot of communications with him and his family, didn't you?
Yeah, it was basically Dominic and his mom. I realized after that evening when we were coming home that I had their number. So I called it just to see how Kyle was. And that's when they told me he was already headed to the police station, which, by the way, everybody keeps saying, he went to the cops the next day. Not really. I first got home at 5 a.m. So we first got out of that place around 1:30, 2 o'clock, even maybe later. So he was to the police station within 4 hours. So I hate hearing that because it's just wrong.
Nathan, did you want to? Oh, go ahead if you're not done.
No. I just had to throw that point in there.
Sure. Nathan, what about you? And, did you have any views as far as Kyle since the trial? And I guess you were one of the ones, you told me anyway, that you had a chance to meet him or talk to him, but.
I have not met or talked to him personally. I would like to. As I've met almost everyone else that has participated in this whole trial situation. And for what I practically had to sacrifice, I would just at least like to meet him once. As for what he's doing and how he wants to live his life, that's really up to him. I'm not here to control that. If that's how he wants to be out in the public eye, more power to him. In a way, he deserves, after what he went through, he deserves the best, in my opinion. So that's pretty much my view on that. But again, I would like to meet him one day, whether it's in private, doesn't have to ever be discussed, or whatever. But I would like that opportunity one time.
So I wanted to comment a little bit. My assessment of what I'm watching, I know that they have a picture, he actually ended up at Trump's house, and it makes me wonder if he's going to in some way become just like that couple whose name is escaping me, who pulled their guns when a BLM was in their gated community.
The Mikowskis?
Yeah,
whether or not he's going to be an attaché or a part of the entourage of Trump 2024 or whatever. And I have a lot of Trump supporters who watch my show, so I'm not necessarily against that. I'd be concerned, if he's a Trump supporter, that's his right. I never had an issue with his political views. It wasn't what was relevant to me. What was relevant to me is that you can, in fact, be innocent of murder and also be a Trump supporter. That's the part that the left is having a hard time accepting, that, your political.
And if I could just add something real fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just hope he has a massive amount of followers on every platform. If you notice, I just hope being that person that is so widely out there now, he uses some of that to give a positive message out of all this. However he can make it, I don't know how all that stuff works, but give a positive message out of it. Help as many people as he can,
Right.
being in the limelight that he has in the situation that he's gone through. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and I hope he can make it for the positive.
Make it a force for good. Go ahead.
I would suggest that one of those that he could help is Dominic Black, his friend, who's not out of the woods. Again, as somebody mentioned, Binger is going to appeal. I know it's going to happen in January. The Judge Schroeder is going to probably drop the charge, and they are going to appeal this. And that's going to tie up Dominic for a year, because the appeals process, as Kevin will tell you, is very long. And it requires a different kind of, I would say the expenses are going to be there, because now you're writing appeals briefs and everything like that. So Dominic needs some help. And I was kind of hoping that Kyle would throw his weight into helping his friend. They're still friends. I mean,
and here's the thing: is that might be happening, but that's not going to be something that they're going to publicize for obvious reasons. So, that could be going on. We don't know for sure. I know that. I'm sorry. Dominic has a great attorney. He'd probably be. I mean, I have my favorite attorneys. He's not a Kenosha attorney, so I don't know him well. But one of the attorneys that I work for, who's one of the best in the state, vouches for Tony Cotton. He's one of the best. So he's in good hands legally. And but the appellate process is all political. I mean, none of us will be naive enough to say it's not, because like Johnny was saying, it's briefs. So if, let's say hypothetically, Schrader throws out both charges and the state appeals, the state files a brief why they think the judge got it wrong. Then Dominic's attorney will get to file a brief rebutting that, and then the state will get one final brief. And then the Court of Appeals, a 3-panel of judges, decide. I mean, that's it, right? And they could take it to the Supreme Court after that if they lose. Either side could. But the Supreme Court is kind of like, they got a couple of what they call rhinos on the Supreme Court where that could go either way. And the problem with that is now it's settled, right? So if the appellate court or the Supreme Court says, well, a dangerous weapon, we're going to, define it as this, then that's precedent now that has to be followed, which could be bad or good. But there's going to be a lot of pressure, a lot of amicus briefs filed by gun rights groups and, gun control groups. It'll be a mess, that's for sure.
So now we've reached the 2-hour mark. So, Kevin, it would be your turn to ask another question. And then I'd like to ask the panel if we're open to just kind of moving to a more open discussion format after that. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah. Could I follow up with Kevin? The appeals court, what's the political makeup like for the appeals court?
So the appeals court they're elected. So each one some of them are appointed. Like right now, for example, a guy just retired, and this is another thing they do in probably all over the world, but in Wisconsin. So if a liberal-leaning judge wants to retire and there's a liberal governor, instead of just not running, they retire a couple of months before the election. That way, the governor right now, who's a Democrat, Tony Evers, gets to appoint the next judge. That way, he or she has the advantage in the election. So that's what you just saw happen. You just saw a liberal appellate court in this district where we are. We're in the 2nd District of Appeals for the statewide appeals court. He was a liberal, and he resigned, and then Tony Evers appointed his successor, a woman. So now she's going to have an advantage in the next election. So right now, I think it's about half and half, I'd say. So it's really the luck of the draw. So he could, the 3-judge panel could be 3 conservatives, could be 3 liberals, could be 2 of one of the other. It's just it's the luck of the draw.
Well, see, they have like I think 7 appellate judges, and only 3 of them actually will hear.
Correct.
Okay, and they're chosen randomly.
That's how it's supposed to be. Yeah, they kind of, in Wisconsin, they just have a hat and they put the names in there.
Okay.
And they pull out a name.
Oh, thanks. I didn't know that. All right, Go ahead.
So go ahead with whatever your final questions to the 2 guests are, and then we'll switch to an open format.
I think you're talking to Kevin, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
if you had any final questions.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to be able to talk to these 2 knuckleheads a lot. So these are my buddies. So I guess we'll have to get together, a bunch of us. Anybody, Paul, you can fly down.
Absolutely, we still got to take our picture.
Yeah, we got to take a picture. And we got to have you over for dinner, Nate.
Absolutely.
But,
I'll be up there.
And I just want to give a shout out to Kevin real fast. I don't know, where's my camera, for making me this little press thing. I really appreciate it. I don't know if you can see it.
Nathan DeBruin, photographer.
Sweet.
Look at that.
Nice.
With the
and then I got him a generic one in case he doesn't want to be made fun of for being a gossip blogger.
And he also did. Yes. I really appreciate that, Kevin.
Sure, buddy. I got the cooler gift though. I got a signed autograph of myself.
Foot in the door, like when you're applying, when you're trying to take pictures at the weddings and stuff,
Yeah, exactly. So I don't have. So I'm gonna use. I'm gonna. What did I just want to say? Somebody else go. I had a comment instead of a question, but somebody else.
Sure.
Go.
Well, no, and that's fine. I guess basically what I would suggest then, because I've done these a lot, and what it should come down to is that basically, as me as the moderator, I'm going to be a traffic cop, but everybody just be mindful of everybody else, and go ahead and talk a little more openly. But if somebody had a point, if you see them like maybe putting their fingers up or starting to talk, just be mindful of it, and then in them in. And in this case, yes.
I'm sorry. This would be a good time maybe to tell people to smash that like button.
Oh yeah, I was getting to that too.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. But no, it's a totally legitimate thing to remind me of. You guys, if you haven't already, smash the like button, because it's one of the only things you can do to really help us. And aside from, directly sharing, and if you're one of my people, and I think everybody else here would agree, I think the only one I haven't added yet to my recommended channels on my YouTube is Kenosha County Eye, but you definitely should, if you haven't already, subscribe to everybody that you see here, as far as their YouTube presence. And I'm hoping to be able to have some more people on that I think fit this mold, like Strategic Eyes, for example, Black Policeman, really awesome. You guys should, consider bringing him on your channels. But if you like this kind of media, guys, you got to smack the like button. You got to share it directly. Even if you're not going to comment on it, it's really the only way to get us in. As people are saying, it's a really hard smack. But like the Soviet smack. Oh,
yeah, how do we do a Soviet smack?
Flag on the play. Flag on the play. The fact that Paul is laughing is good for Ripley, though, or you really finding your body somewhere.
I should mention that Ripley at one point had asked if he could join on, and I said yes, but I have not. So Ripley, I'm sorry if I have not been paying attention to the Twitter stream. So if you did ask for the link here, I just missed it.
But I did want to give another shout out to Polyfrog as a thank you, because he shared this stream again for me. And if you guys haven't checked out Polyfrog's channel, you should. He does most of his stuff on Odyssey now because he just keeps getting banned all the time. And because at this point everything's misinformation or shocking information. Did you hear that? That guy talked to that woman who testified in the Kyle Rittenhouse. We have to protect people from that. It's shocking. But I guess the philosophical point that I would like to pose to everyone to get us started is just to say that now we're looking at this, and it's been over a year. A few years from now, do you think that this is just going to completely fade? How is it going to impact things in the long run? I can say that on my end, I've already seen a change in the energy. For one thing, there's a prosecutor right now who's actually prosecuting Antifa in Sacramento, California. He's already arrested like 12 of them. we need to encourage people who do that. And if somebody is going to prosecute these people, then, get behind them, because they're going to take enormous crap. In addition to that, the BLM, some of it is going to be the weather, which sounds like a small thing. But when I was in Occupy, the fact that winter showed up had a big impact on the protests. But also the energy is different. Like when on the front stairs of Kenosha Kenosha Courthouse during the trial, ironically, it was actually Black Lives Matter protesters that were making sure everybody calmed down. And, and there were a few obviously differences in that. Kevin, you were present, but I think you know what I mean. Is just that if stuff started to get out of hand, then it was actually Black Lives Matter protesters who were getting in their way and going, no, you need to chill out. So Antifa is losing morale. I know that they posted, I did a video about this because on Twitter they were like, man, this changes everything. We need to get, we're not going to be able to just do what we did before. We need to get armed, And I guess that comes back around full circle to what we said when this started, was that this was evidence that we needed to be armed. And that was one of the, I guess I'm going to leave it with, is like this weird energy that supposedly bringing a gun escalates something rather than deterring it. Like, what fantasy world are they living in that people are more likely to get physically violent if somebody has a gun? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So somebody muscle your way in.
I would like to follow that one up. I've had this psychological theory that I have pushed on my show quite a bit, that the AR-15 especially has become so symbolic that people have forgotten that it's a dangerous weapon. And I think that, and I have a video, by the way, on my channel where a young kid, he's probably about maybe 22 or so, he walks through a park, and these people that were a part, and it was at a protest. It was a protest in Colorado for a woman that was mistreated by the police there.
I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
Everybody got distracted.
There's a Nathan Bruin fan in the house.
But
who was interested in some photo Chad Levin.
People are all gathered around this guy and tearing into him, telling him about, how dare you bring such a terrifying weapon? Well, it's terrifying, but you have no trouble trying to start an argument with him.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's become symbolic, and I think that's the reason why Anthony Huber and Gage Grosskreutz chased after Kyle was that he was carrying an AR-15. It's a symbol. They forgot that it can actually shoot bullets.
Right.
And, you talk about how terrifying this weapon is and how we have to ban them because, oh my gosh, these things are weapons of mass destruction. And yet you'll confront somebody carrying one.
Well, what about when they asked Ann, what's more intimidating, a pistol or an AR-15? Well, I guess if they're pointed at your head, doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
That struck me as funny, especially, I understand the AR-15 can reach further, is more powerful. But when you're facing somebody armed, a gun is a gun. Doesn't matter what they have, that end result can be the same.
Well, in Kenosha, just real quick, in Kenosha, we just had Kenosha County and Twin Lakes, we just had a homicide of one of these 3D printed guns that only holds one round, from what I understand. He put it right up to the back of the guy's head. Boom, he's dead. Just as dead as he would have been if it was an AR-15.
Yeah. And I wanted to say in the trial that, look at some of these bank robbers. They go in and they rob banks with a squirt gun. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if there's something in your hand that looks like a gun, they're all a deterrent. So don't tell me that one is worse than the other, because it's not. In fact, I feel safer with a hand weapon because your person coming at you, you can actually defend yourself when they're closer at you.
Right, right.
Than with a rifle. Yeah. So I feel safer with a handgun.
Well,
that's why I had both. I had a pistol and an AR.
This trial definitely demonstrated, and what I've noticed is a long-term trend, is that general public is absolutely clueless when it comes to firearms and stuff like that. And being demonstrated it so much when, Kyle, you have AR-15, big scary gun. Mr. Grosskreutz is aiming his pistol at your head and he has only pistol. Why did you shoot him?
Well, it depends. Oh, you forgot. Did he have the exploding rounds or not?
Like they're
Did
playing
he
a
have
first-person
exploding
shooter
arms?
like Doom, where one gun does more damage than the other, or something.
Yeah, precisely. And I especially find, like, it's just hilarious how people can both underestimate and overestimate the capability of that rifle. And the overestimation is, like, basically, why did Kyle shoot at Mr. Rosenbaum? Well, let's be honest, if he would not shot, Mr. Rosenbaum would be in the next half a second past his muzzle, then it's pointless, then he can be beaten to death, you know what I mean? And they're like, well, why did you shoot him then? Why don't you wait until he starts to punch you or something like that? And like, you cannot shoot him then. You know, that's the that's the overestimation of the capability. But the underestimation is that Kyle went there to kill people. And I'm like, if he wanted to kill people, there would be so many more bodies lying in the street. And even justifiably so, you know, like, because, for example, right after he fell, there were two gentlemen that were charging him. He pointed his rifle at them. They lifted their arms, stopped that in the spot, you know, like, and he didn't fire at them. And that would be justified, you know, like, yeah.
Well,
but,
yeah,
like,
if you want a maximum
just
body
feels-
count, why would you even be walking around public? Like when they made this stupid point about the gloves. Yeah, he's obviously so concerned that somebody might identify him. He's only walking around openly talking to people.
Yeah.
You know, but it was like if he wanted maximum body count, he could have gotten in any of those roofs and just shot people slowly and deliberately the way a sniper would, so that nobody
So
would know where
He would have been on our roof where we were if he
And-
wanted to
and he
randomly
would-
do that.
Right.
Yeah, and he would not be on any camera, or at least, you know, like, nobody could specifically be like, hey, that's that guy, because, you know, like, of the lighting and stuff like that. And he could have then slunk off of the roof in the back and mixed into a crowd. He could get away with it, to be honest.
By the way, on my own show, I have the challenge. Those of you who think that Kyle was there to hurt people, I have actually given a quiz. There's like 8 questions. And I'll just give you an example. Mr. Yellow Pants. He walks up to Mr. Yellow Pants. Mr. Yellow Pants is obviously wanting to start some shit with him, right? And so why doesn't Kyle shoot him? Why doesn't Kyle at least even try to escalate the argument? Why does he walk away from him? If his true intent was to hurt people that night, here's the perfect opportunity. He's got 3 black kids. Remember, he's supposed to be really racist. He's got 3 of them wanting to get into an argument with him. Why doesn't he escalate the argument? Why does he just walk away?
That's a point that I bring up all the time. He testified, well, not in court, but like when he was being interviewed, he said, I just got pepper sprayed by somebody in the crowd. Why didn't he shoot them? You know, you know, in fact, what was his response? His eyes are still watering from being pepper sprayed. What does he do? He goes out and says, I have an EMT, let me help you. Like right after, like his eyes are still watering for being pepper sprayed, and he goes out and tries to help people. You know, if that's what his objective was, it just doesn't make any sense. There's another one of those
I wouldn't have.
I wanted to make a point, and I know Paul mentioned it, and I see Eva Likes Red had mentioned it too, and it's something that I've been believing in for a long time. I've had my concealed carry for a long time now. And what I found, and it's very odd that, I don't know if I've ever mentioned to you, but I'm an observer. So I observe things when I'm out in public. And I had observed so many people getting their concealed carry, but yet they don't practice what they own.
Right.
So the big thing, and seeing that photo of Binger with the gun up to his arm and pointing that, and his finger on the trigger, I was beside myself. I think my gut was ill. So yeah, he may be a concealed carry holder, but I can guarantee you he never went and practiced. He doesn't know his gun like his own hand. And in an emergency, he would not have been able to handle himself. Meaning he probably would have fumbled trying to load his gun or trying to clock his gun. Look at what happened with Kyle. Kyle was very, how do you say it? He handled himself. He handled himself really well through that. I mean, for those 3 minutes of being under attack,
he was disciplined.
Very disciplined. Because he practiced, and you have to practice. So Eva had said in there, it's amazing so many people carry guns, but nobody knows anything about the gun laws. And she's right. there's just so much ignorance about it. Everybody wants a gun, but nobody goes and learns how to handle and learns the law and learns the discipline of a gun. I mean, it's a big responsibility. So I just wanted to touch point on that because I think that needs to be discussed.
Sure. If I just quickly may, like in my country, like for carry permit or any permit for a firearm, you actually need to at the test to demonstrate a certain level of marksmanship, for example, that you can take, like that you can disassemble and assemble the firearm, like back together, like take care of it, like from this standpoint, like, and also demonstrate a certain level of marksmanship, before you get a license.
Yeah, there's varying levels here. The concealed carry I went to, I didn't even have to demonstrate anything about a gun. I never even had to bring a gun. They just taught us about the laws. Yeah.
Oh, and you got your CCW, Nate?
I do.
Oh, that a boy.
Well, that answers somebody else's question about your stance on Second Amendment.
Yep. I was waiting to get to that.
Did you?
I'm sorry.
Did you?
Hold on a second, Johnny. There are other people that went through the concealed carry, and all they had to demonstrate was they were able to load and unload their gun safely to get their license. So there are different levels, but I think everybody should join a club or get together with buddies and go practice shooting. You need to know how your gun handles and the best way to shoot and how you're supposed to shoot and that. So.
Not to mention the safety, like needs to be muscle memory. Like what I mean. Not to point it at anybody. Keep the finger out of the trigger guard. Etc. It cannot be like just something like.
Okay, so recommendation here.
Yeah.
The Smith & Wesson J-frame. It's a revolver. It's no safety. It's got a fairly strong trigger pull, and it's got no actual external hammer. Really good for slipping down into a purse and pulling out. The hammer's not going to catch on anything. It's ready to go. All you have to do is pull out and pull the trigger. You don't have to worry about whether it's on safety or not. I really recommend it for somebody who's not an experienced gun carrier.
I've either got a J frame or a K frame. I can't remember. So Nate, did you get your first carry gun yet?
Yes.
What'd you go with?
A SIG P265.
Oh, right on.
Disappointed it wasn't
this episode
CZ.
of Guns and Ammo.
Well, now that we know that Photo Chad carries a gun, we might have to incorporate a new nickname.
Loaded Chad.
That was another question I got answered in the chat, by the way, guys. Is that Chad is Photo Chad is not on the market, ladies. Sorry.
Yeah.
Here. So I got a question for both of you, Grambo and Nathan. Obviously, don't answer it if you don't want to. So 2 questions. Obviously, we just answered one. Do you have a partner? And if so, how did all of your newfound fame affect your relationship? What does your partner feel about it, etc.? Nate, you want to start?
Oh, okay. I can go first. So I could tell when I first got introduced to Twitter, I never had a Twitter account until last month. And the night that I got Twitter was the night that I was physically told that if I don't shut my phone off, I won't have a phone. And I literally received like 4,000 followers like in the first 2 days that I was on Twitter. My phone just literally went off constantly the whole day, and that's how it continued into the night. And she just was pretty stance on, if that happens again, I won't have a phone
or a girlfriend.
Yeah.
How long you guys been together?
A long time, on and off for 15 years.
Oh, geez.
Are you looking for a wedding photographer? I heard Kevin's pretty good.
So
yes,
now
she's backed me up quite a bit. I am trying to keep her identity private just for the sake of safety. She has nothing to do with it. I see how I got treated, and I don't want her harassed at her job or anything like that.
So what happens if TMZ shows up at the wedding? Are you gonna put a pillowcase over her face, or?
I'll handle them. I'll take care of them for Nate.
It's clear that she's
to
be your bodyguard.
So she's supportive of you, Nate.
Yes.
Is she nervous, or what? What are her emotions like?
She was nervous at first about how the reaction was going to be after I got off of the stand. And other than that, she's really supported me. She stepped up a lot. She's the one that's doing like the grocery shopping because, like I said, when I'm out in public, not always positive remarks that I'm receiving, and so she stepped up in a lot of different ways to help support. And like I just got back, I was on the road. I was out in California. I met a couple people out there, and she's very supportive of that and wants to see the success come out of this story.
Oh, good. Grambo?
Yes.
Are you single
You have a
or you have a partner at this time, or do you prefer not to answer?
No, I'll answer. I'm single. I've been single for a long time. I don't know why. I mean, who can handle all this? I don't know. Oddly enough, I didn't even get any date offers until after I testified, but nobody stepped up to the plate yet. So I am available.
And if you had a presence on social media, I can guarantee you would not be at a loss for date requests.
I am on Twitter. I'm just not on there often.
You want to plug your Twitter? What's your Twitter handle?
You know, I couldn't even freaking tell you.
You want me to say it? I got you here. So Grambo is
put it in the private chat.
Sure. Well, you're okay with it being.
Yeah, I don't care.
You can find her on Twitter at @Ann_citizen. So at ANN_citizen. Go follow her on Twitter.
Yeah, it's funny because, I don't think people knew that I was even on social media or they knew what my handle was. I did mention somebody had said something and I said, Grambo wants to talk, but nobody gave a response.
Yeah, that was Rakita. That was Rakita. You should. Nathan has a good relationship with those law tubers. I'm sure they'd love to have you on their show.
Yeah,
for sure.
And so I only have like 14 followers, so I'm a little jealous, Nathan. But I guess they didn't know. They only knew my name, not my.
I could definitely help you out with that.
Oh well, geez.
You could use like the thumbnail. I can remove the basically the text live stream and stuff like that. Then you can use the thumbnail like from today's stream.
You said that a little too fast, Paul.
Like as your profile picture on Twitter, like to communicate who you are, you can use the thumbnail, like that we are using for this live stream. I'll just like take out the text and stuff like that, the live stream, and I can send it to you. No problem,
Okay.
Sounds good. Your pack.
By the way, I just wanted to ask you,
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. I just wanted to join and ask you, what do you think of that? I was hoping not to insult you or anything, but that's kind of like the show business and like works that we need to capitalize on on these kind of things. About I don't know if you've seen the thumbnail. Yeah? That's what I'm asking. What do you think about it?
I don't understand what he's asking me.
The thumbnail.
Have you seen the picture that he used for this broadcast? It's another like kind of meme with your face and on the body of Rambo.
I don't see what he's using for me, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yep. So
I may not like that.
All right, but I want to say, if you ever do make it on Nick Rakita's show, and I really think that you should, he's the one that first coined the term Grambo. I'm sure he would love to have you. You got to plug my show.
He termed a lot. I think he termed
the Johnny Walker Dread show because he doesn't even know I'm alive.
Is he the guy
that? Help you out, Johnny.
Is he the guy that also?
Here we go.
Oh, for goodness grief. you might scare the men away on that one.
I would have been surprised,
Oh, no, I'm not built like that. A little more feminine, please.
Joanne, did you see the video I posted on Twitter?
I did. For good. You know what? I always wondered what I would be like with dark hair, and you kind of answered that question. So it's like,
Paul, I'm going to send you this video. Maybe put that on the screen for the viewers. They're going to love it. Hold on one second.
So while he's doing that, I just want to address my viewers real quick, just for some basic V radio announcements. Coming up pretty soon, I'm gonna be on. Speaking of like the lawyers, Good Logic asked me to come on. to talk about things. He actually called me out, gave me a compliment about my videos, which was awesome. So I'm hoping to drag everybody along with me when that happens. And I also just landed an interview with Brett Weinstein. That's going to be pretty fantastic.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
Who's that? That sounds familiar.
Brett Weinstein is actually, ironically, a leftist-leaning professor who got more or less witch hunted out of his job. And he has since become a big YouTuber. And because he's a biologist, he made some comments about the unspecified virus of unknown origin, as Bering calls it. And he got his YouTube demonetized for it. And he didn't say anything that was untrue, but anyway, he's a big time commentator on different things now. Ironically, it's kind of like that moment in Star Wars when Obi-Wan Kenobi says, "You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I'll be more powerful than you could possibly imagine." And that's what happened when he got fired as a professor. As now he has a way bigger voice than he ever did. But yeah, that's coming up on V Radio. Brett Weinstein, I'll be interviewing him in a few weeks, and I'll be on Good Logic's channel pretty early in January. So,
hey, Neil, have you approached? I can't remember his name, but the former student there that had a long running show series on
Benjamin Boyce.
I'm sorry,
Benjamin Boyce.
Yeah,
I messaged him once, and he told me to email him, and then he just never got back to me. It's interesting how that works. But you have to remember these people get peppered, But yeah, I'd love to talk to him. His documentary series about what happened was fantastic.
Just give my viewers an example of what he's talking about, or an idea. Brett Weinstein was at Evergreen State College. He was a biology professor, and they wanted to have a deal where a special day where no white professors were allowed to show up on campus. And
no white people at all, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Like,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And because he's a Jew, he was like, "Wait a minute, people are telling me not to go somewhere." Not fond of that. Go ahead.
So what happened after that was that they labeled him a white supremacist, and and they had rallies, and to the point where his life was being threatened. They were actually, the activists on campus were actually pulling over cars on the road coming out of the college looking for him.
And they were patrolling the campus with baseball bats too.
Oh yeah, and then they even held pretty much the president hostage inside this auditorium. They only allowed him. He actually had to get permission to go to the restroom. There's a whole series. Oh, you think it's bad? What we saw with the BLM riots. Evergreen State College is absolutely bonkers. So that is Brett Weinstein thing on your show is going to be jaw-dropping. And I am truly it was so incredible about how these students get so indoctrinated. We think it's bad, but when you watch what happened at Evergreen State, you will just not believe it.
And that's why I've been telling people to watch that entire documentary series. And if, unfortunately, a lot of viewers, they can't watch anything long, but he makes it in chapters that are like 10 minutes long. Even if you just do it one chapter at a time, and we'll make sure we post a link to Benjamin Boyce's channel. But the reason I want everybody to watch this is because you really get to watch mass psychosis, like the Salem witch trials. Like it's that level of insanity, take control of that college campus. And he's a leftist. Like he's not a Trump weird right, and he certainly wasn't racist. But that's how far they took it, and it was completely out of control. And that's why now they're saying that this isn't one example of things that are happening in college campuses pretty much all over the country.
I will say this,
turn a blind eye to it.
In your show, I'll make a comment. You can bring it up to him. But I have a feeling that the fact that he was a leftist is why they went after him so much.
Right. Yeah, they're really intolerant of anybody, in any way counteracting.
Yeah, the dissenters.
Right. And Mary Todd's in the chat. Hey there, Mary, you foxy, patriotic butterfly, you. Once again, guys, if you haven't checked out Mary's channel, make sure you do.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if you could explain, give an introduction to Mary.
Mary Todd is a journalist, activist, who gets really deep on the topic of Antifa specifically. Mary Todd's work was credited. You may remember some time ago there was this huge argument about whether or not Tiny, I'm not going to be able to pronounce his last name, but Tiny the Proud Boy, was a one of the leaders of the Proud Boy movement, was shot, and members of Antifa and their supporters were publicly telling everybody on Twitter that he had shot himself and that nobody shot him. And that went on for like 2 weeks. And Mary Todd was the one who did the necessary legwork to get the footage that made it very clear. Not only did he get shot by a member of Antifa, they identified who did it, and now the guy's sitting in jail. So if you want to know like the true, bitter history of Antifa, you should check out Mary Todd's channel. Mary Todd and I are going to be working on a documentary specifically about, yes, Antifa is a thing. Yes, Antifa is in fact a domestic terrorist group, and they are dangerous, and they are hurting people, and they attack people who, it's in their ideology that they feel that attacking people who are saying things they don't like is them protecting themselves from the rise of fascism. So they're just allowed to go, engage in violence with whomever they want. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. If I may, when I was watching the Evergreen and stuff, I was like, is this for real? Is this like some kind of a parody or something like that of satire of like a communist or fascist, basically regimes that they are trying to, play out? Like for real, I couldn't believe that it was like just to such a ridiculous degree, and just the lack of logic there that because Mr. Weinstein, am I saying that right?
Weinstein.
Yeah, Weinstein. Professor Weinstein, when they completely did not understand the point of the absence day, because they specifically told that it was designed so the people, when they are not on campus, you notice what you are missing, so they basically, you appreciate them properly. So him not going, basically going there, he was technically speaking shooting himself in the foot, right there. He was, putting himself in a disadvantage instead of the other way. And they were just in this, zealous madness, or I don't know how else to describe it, that they couldn't even figure that out, that he was actively not helping himself by showing, basically showing himself there.
There was a moment in particular, and then I have a question I want to ask everybody after this, but there was one moment in particular, and it's caught in the documentary, and unfortunately it's audio only, but Brett had gotten away from the crowd long enough that he was just talking to a couple of students, which meant that the witch hunt mentality wasn't in full effect. And so he starts making some headway because he's just rationally talking to them. And so somebody realizes that he's breaking their spell, so he walks over and he starts arguing with them, and he says to Brett, he says, "You need to stop demanding that people use logic and reason and white forms of information." Like, that's not a paraphrase. That's exactly what they said to Brett. You need to stop demanding that people use logic and reason.
Oh,
so
my
it's more,
God.
Right. So it's not just a war on, right versus left. They don't even want you to think straight, which is why that's why I brought up the new Matrix movie, bringing up that emotions are easier to manipulate than facts. That's why there are people who want to control us, who have a certain vested interest in us abandoning facts and in favor of emotion. So kind of, distantly related, but because it just happened, I'm curious also, and I think that people listening will be curious about the opinions, starting with Nathan and then Grambo, and then we'll just go around the circle. The Kim Potter verdict. What did you guys think of that trial? The police officer that accidentally pulled her gun and shot a guy when she thought she had her taser. Did you follow it, Nathan?
Not too much, but I do know the trial that you are talking about.
Did you have any thoughts on it?
I don't, because I didn't see enough to really give a thought onto it. I was actually out in California at the time.
Totally fair. What about you, Joanne? Did you check it out?
I did a little bit. I don't know, for an officer that gets involved, because she was an officer for a long time, like 20-some years, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So for an officer, imagine how many incidents, arrests, traffic stops, just criminal activity or radio calls that come in. Imagine how many she's been involved in throughout her career.
Well, I will say this, that was one of the topics that came out. It turns out that she almost never fact, she made a claim that she had never had to pull her gun out
Right.
her entire 26 years and rarely had to pull out a taser. And at 5'3", I can tell you what that is all about. That is a person who's simply riding along. And, you have these little ride-alongs with police, right, where they have like a young kid and they get to ride in the car and they get to go out to the scenes. For all practical purposes, that's what she was doing. So here was a case where she actually ended up having to pull out, take action. She had not hardly done any of this. So she should never have been a cop. However, I don't think that first-degree manslaughter was appropriate. I looked through the actual statutes. They don't seem to apply to her. Second degree, maybe. But first degree, no. This was, in my opinion, a political verdict.
Agreed. Agreed. And my point was just that out of all those incidences, you're going to have, there's going to be mistakes made. You can't never be 100% accurate. But again, to your point, you have a valid point there too. She probably should have never been out on the streets at that size. I mean,
right. And we saw the same thing with Amber Geiger, and you'll also notice that it seems to be very small statured police officers that seem to get into some of these troubles. And I think that's because they rely on their weapons a little bit too much. You have to be able to go in and take Roscoe down. When Roscoe's drunk in a bar, you have to be able to take him down. You can't just rely on your taser all the time. And in this case, she did, but pulled out the wrong one.
Well, being 5'4", there's other ways to take someone down than with a gun.
Well, I agree. I mean, and
I have a lot of older brothers, and they've taught me a lot of things, and I've gave just about every single one of them their first black eye. There's other ways to take down big boys.
Yeah, it's about the ability to take control of somebody.
Yes.
If somebody's 5'4" and they can do it, fine. Although to a certain extent, though, you're also looking at having like Roberto Duran as a bouncer. Like, yeah, he can punch out. Of course, he's long dead now. I probably should use somebody more contemporary, but yeah, he could punch you out, but he's so small that he's going to be always in trouble because nobody's going to take him seriously. So I kind of tend to think that having larger police officers could cut down on some of the amount of times that they're having these problems. But that's actually quite, let's say that's I'm going to get a lot of flack on that.
As a wrestling coach, the size thing is also more relevant when you're trying to grapple. It's not the end all. Like, you can still grapple with somebody who's bigger than you if you have the right technique, but it becomes considerably harder.
And in this case, you had a dude who was wanted for a very serious crime. Right. What, he shot somebody, or it was something terrible?
I can actually tell you, so he went over and stayed at a girl's house with a friend of his, and then he overheard her getting ready to go pay the rent. So he literally got up, grabbed her by the throat, and pulled his gun on her, and made her give him her rent. Like, that's what he did. That's what the warrant was for.
So when you're a police officer and you run somebody, and you look at this is what this guy is capable of, I can see why you're a little bit nervous. Whereas this guy got that gun with him. Is he going to shoot me? Is he going to attack me? So, I mean, you got to put all that into perspective. And that was a mistake. I mean, it was clear she had immediate remorse. She started crying. She was frantic.
That's what I took away from it for sure. When they showed the extended video where she's like rolling around on the grass in like absolute despair by what she had just done.
Yeah, of course. What's the counter argument? Oh, that's all fake. Just like with Kyle McCann. Oh, that's all fake.
That's absolute bullshit.
You can't win with these people.
Somebody commented too that you know, how can you not tell the difference between the weight of a gun and a taser? When you're making a movement that fast, you can't. Your grip is your grip, and and then you're going for the aim. There's no way. I can't tell the difference between my handguns. You're going that fast.
We all make them.
When Grambo has like 8 guns at a time, like strapped to her body, she gets it mixed up, you know.
2 is my limit.
That's like when you're playing a first-person shooter and you can toggle all of your guns through the number keys.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, I should mention that anybody that wants to know about Dante Wright's background, I already did a video on my channel on it. I went through
I'm gonna watch that
criminal record and reacted to it, of course.
Oh, you know what? I don't know if anybody knows this, but Kyle he was doing an interview, and he had said that during the trial, one of the channels he preferred to watch was Johnny Walker Dread.
That's right.
So, which I thought was awesome.
Sweet.
I mean, I don't know when I first saw Johnny's channel. I think he was kind of going through one of my articles that I posted. And you know what? Stop talking shit about my spelling and grammar errors. I'm not a smart man.
Wait a minute. I don't recall ever, because usually when I see him, I go, I normally would mention this, but I think I'll ease up on it a little bit here.
I am not a smart man, and I don't claim to be. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, and I started watching your channel, and it was just, you offered, for me, I loved watching your perspective, because you're down in, Las Vegas, Oklahoma, and you get a fresh perspective because you're not up here in Kenosha, and you call things how you see it. So I started watching your show, and it's interesting. I wonder how Kyle got turned on to your show. But
it would have been hard for him to miss it, because if you do a search on Kyle Rittenhouse and you filter like today, I mean, I'm going to show up, because I'm the only one that actually punches out Kyle Rittenhouse stuff almost on a daily deal. So I'm not terribly surprised he missed me. By the way, there is no Las Vegas, Oklahoma. That's a playoff of Green Acres. When Ed was winning a big...
I did look up. I looked that up, and I did not find Las Vegas.
Well, Ed was winning his grand prize on the radio, and they said, "You're winning a free trip to Las Vegas, Illinois."
Yeah, my kids know your little intro by heart.
Oh yeah.
Here to school you on a thing or two, or whatever that is. My kids know that.
Set you straight on a thing or two.
Yeah,
something like
set
that.
you straight on a thing or two. And that's another thing that's come from this trial is the this law tubing thing. Because Nate was on a stream with Legal Bites.
Yeah.
She was one of the lawyer commentators with Rakita Law.
I can show you a photo.
Didn't she say? Oh yeah, she's not hard to look at. I don't know how.
Who
what's
you
the
talking
political way?
I guess we're about to find out.
The lawyer
Yeah,
bites.
Legal Bites. BYT.
Legal Bites.
sorry.
Yeah. She's she's easy on the eyes.
And
Framed
she's easy on the-
pictures on his wall.
Yeah.
Is that a hint as far as to who managed to snag you there, Nate?
Yeah, I just
No.
wanted to say that. Yeah.
No, he's.
No, it's just a conspiracy theory. I'm not.
But Nate, she was telling you. I remember she interviewed you, and you guys were talking about. They went from, I don't know, such a small amount of subscribers to in the hundreds of thousands because of Kyle Rittenhouse's trial, right?
Yeah, she gained tens of thousands of people, as well as Joe at Good Logic. He gained quite a few from the Rittenhouse trial. And actually, I will be on Joe's channel later tonight at 10 o'clock.
Awesome.
Also, for my part 2 of my testimony.
Yeah,
That's
that
right,
was-
I'm gonna
I
have
watched
to-
the first part of that where you're sitting down watching your testimony and then the two of you commenting on it. That was fun.
And I must say, it's weird watching yourself like on TV, on the internet. Like, I've never done that, and it's just weird to me.
Yeah, and in the beginning, you are not used to your voice, and you're like, well, do I really sound like that? You know?
Hey Nathan, I have a quick question from my Patriot group.
Yes.
They want to know if you'll double your goal on your Give Send Go account.
He upped it. We bullied him into it. He just upped it while
Yeah,
we were
you guys
talking.
bullied me into it.
Okay.
I did put it at $60,000 now.
Okay, because they asked me a while ago, and I know if I don't ask, I'll forget later. So okay, thanks.
Definitely.
Oh, Grambo, I wanted to
And
ask you. Go ahead.
And I
After-
did put out a tweet about your Twitter, and it looks like as of right now you are at 79 followers.
Shut the hell up.
That's exploding.
We're gonna make a love connection here. There's gonna be Grambo.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm very picky. I'm very picky.
Must love guns.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Must be willing to travel to protect others.
Well, travel, yes, and
like
yes,
salty
must be
language.
protected.
Okay, so Grambo, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, I was put on the witness list for the Rittenhouse trial, and when I saw my name on the witness list, I just laughed because there is no way Binger or Krause were going to put me on that stand because they would not have liked. I wouldn't have been Mr. Nice Guy like Nathan. I would have been a complete dick.
I would have it.
So I complained to the judge and says, "Look, I don't belong on this witness list. Please, get involved." And he basically said, "Look, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not saying you don't have a good complaint, but it's not my job, right?" So then Binger wrote a letter to the judge saying that you told the FBI you came to Kenosha because of my call to arms. Is that true?
Absolutely not. I didn't even know that the Kenosha Guard existed.
So I'm going to send you a copy of that letter because that's bullshit. He's a liar. We all know that.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is going back to the subpoena. So I was subpoenaed by the DA. I never had law enforcement talk to me. I literally had to call the DA's office, and I talked to, I think her name was Betsy. She was the
victim witness advocate.
Yes, victim witness advocate. I talked to her, and I said, honestly, I don't know why the DA is subpoenaing me because I absolutely have nothing that could help the DA, the district attorney's office. I have nothing.
They don't want me.
Yeah. And so I contacted them before I even heard from the defense. I kind of knew, but I was shocked that I didn't even hear from the defense sooner or was interviewed by them sooner than what I was. So, no, I never even heard of the Kenosha Guard, didn't know what it was. And like I said, my thought when I went down there is I thought we would have been on Main Street, helping the businesses on Main Street, because that's what I saw the night before burning. I didn't know how big of Main Street was in Kenosha, how long it was, but I thought maybe there's more businesses that were afraid that their business was going to get burnt down that, the night that we went. So I thought we'd be down there. I didn't realize that we were going to go to the car source. I don't know how we wound up there. Never even heard of the Kenosha Guard. So no.
It's good to know.
There's a question here from the chat. Does Grambo have to be at the trial in January? I guess that would
not that I'm aware of, but look at what they pulled on me this round.
What trial?
I'm assuming Zeminski.
Yeah, she's talking about Zeminski, January 31st.
That's actually a good point because he was there when Rosenbaum, which I'm claiming, Rosenbaum threw that gas bomb at us, that chemical bomb. He was there because that's how I gave him the name Grimace. Remember, I was trying to tell you guys, I couldn't remember the nickname we gave him. It was Grimace and Red. And that was him and his wife with Rosie. So it was Rosie, Grimace, and Red. Those were the three that were there. And Rosenbaum came out of the crowd because he was with Grimace and Red. He's the one that came out of the crowd, and I noticed his red shirt and his big green loop in his ear. And so I'm surprised because Grimace actually clocked his gun. He loaded it when Rosenbaum came through the crowd, and there was a video of it. And there's a video of another guy in a blue shirt. I think me and Neil talked about this.
Yeah,
I think
the guy I call Ice Cube because he brandishes his gun dramatically, like he thinks he's in a gangster rap movie.
Yeah, the one who pointed at right at the camera.
Right, and one of the things that came out of our conversation was that he did that multiple times that evening. So he was absolutely just posturing like he thought he was going to get his rap album to finally get attention or something.
It's funny because you can even see the veins in his arms, and just like Rosenbaum, he was just enraged, and you can see the veins in his neck and in his head, and it's like, dude, you're going to have a heart attack. Mellow out.
We did get a question about Ryan Balch, and I know that we talked about Ryan yesterday, Grambo. Do you want to talk about him and of course Nathan as well?
I have a lot to say about Ryan Balch, but I think Paul had something to say.
Yeah, I just because Kevin sent me a video a bit ago, specifically about you. So if I may share it.
This is the first time being shown on live TV. There she is.
You guys seeing it? Yeah, you guys seeing it. Yeah, so.
I look so scared.
Well, you're being tortured.
Oh, well, okay.
It's appropriate to the moment.
Oh my gosh.
There, that one. I love that hair.
So only at Kenosha Eyes, like Twitter. So yeah, that's numero uno, and I wanted to, because like right now, as you were describing the ice cube, I kind of wanted to go into the bit funny thing, yeah. Like if it was basically something like this, Neil.
Hold up there, Buster.
Oh yeah.
Oh, hey, couldn't help but notice you're trespassing on my land. Sorry, I was just hiking through it. Didn't know this was private property. Best get to stepping, son. All right, just get off if you need me to. I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Doing a lot of yammering, but unbeknownst to you, you're speaking your final words. You don't need to brandish that weapon. It's not gonna hurt you. Yeah, sounds to me like they got.
See, what's funny about that is, like, I have a ghetto story from growing up in the ghetto specifically because somebody pulled a shotgun on me and my friends, and he racked it once, and then, like, as the conversation took place, like, maybe 5 minutes later, he racked it again.
I've seen like 36 shells.
So that's actually happened to me in real life before.
All right, I've had up to here. Please take this. I can just leave. You're not even. Yeah, I'm shooting at you now. Is that even a real gun? Yeah. There's like 0 recoil to that gun. Yeah. Dude, you're not even.
That's good.
Alakablam. I don't understand the physics of this.
This guy has better gun safety than Banger.
All right. Yeah. Dude, how many shells do you have in that gun? I got 57 more goddamn rounds in this 4-round magazine.
So yeah,
you do see this a lot in the movies, in the sense that,
right?
Why are you racking your gun? You didn't have this thing ready by now. You're getting ready to go into the building.
Yeah, an unracked gun is not going to do you much good.
Okay, now Ryan Balch.
Yes. So we met Ryan Balch. We were standing with our Patriot group, and he walked up in his full military garb, and he talked to some of the other guys only. He didn't talk to me, just talked to them. I don't know if they exchanged information, but that's who we kind of followed down to Kenosha. Apparently, Ryan was in touch with people in Kenosha, and that's how we wound up where we were, or the area, or that's how we found out that they needed help, that the businesses needed help. I don't know. I just know that we followed Ryan and another guy that he made friends with. The funny thing about Ryan Balch is that night he knew the guys leading the Black Lives Matter group coming down the road. There was a bunch of white guys with rifles leading the march down the street. So, because they came up, they looked at Ryan and they're like, hey, friendlies. And they started talking to Ryan, and Ryan starts talking about how we're his group. And I'm thinking, who the hell is this guy? I just minded my own business. I thought I'm here for a reason. Just let him blow his smoke all he wants. I don't really care. And then, he was kind of like throwing out commands. I thought he was kind of a bit of a pussy. And we all got tear gas and chemical bomb, and he's the only one that was crying in the building. And then he came out of the building and says, oh, I guess I got to take the young kid down the street, and then he loses him. So I just don't think highly of him. And then coincidentally, I did hear his interviews, and yeah, he did flip-flop, and I think he just is looking for the fame. I really think this dude is looking for fame. I know he was in the service, maybe he has PTSD, but the guy doesn't have his head on right. So I think he was just looking for fame there in any which way he could find it. And oddly enough, I had mentioned earlier about one of the BLMers that was standing with a megaphone saying F Trump, with his 2 or 3-year-old son under his arm. That happened to be Ryan Balch's stepbrother. So it was really weird, and I believe they each shared the girlfriend that this BLMer was with. So it used to be Ryan Balch's wife or fiance, and now it was this George's baby's mama. So it was I know, talk about just how small world, but yeah, it became really bizarre. And after that Kenosha thing, we just totally distanced ourselves, especially hearing the interviews. Like, what the fuck are you thinking, dude? So yeah, it's just a lot of history about that guy in a short amount of time.
I know I'd like to talk to him because during the trial, there's a moment where after the Kyle shooting is over with, he said that he was shot at and had to actually take cover behind a car because somebody in a white vehicle or something fired at him. And
no.
Go ahead.
He took cover on the other side of the car. Somebody was shooting out the window of the second floor of the building next to the parking lot.
Oh.
There's video of it, and I think you even had the video up.
I'll have to look for it then, because Schroeder was like, so that's later, right? They're like, yeah, okay, well then it's not relevant. We're not going to go into that. It's like It wasn't that he didn't want to silence them. It's just that it wasn't relevant to Kyle's case. There was no point in bringing it up. So somebody's shooting from the house. That's crazy.
No, it's an apartment building.
Oh, an apartment building.
Yeah. So it's directly, I don't know, north or south. What is the very first car source? You go across the street. You're going more south, and it's an open parking lot, and then there's an apartment building next to that. It was like they were on the second story out that side window shooting down at him because he actually was helping to protect somebody else there. I saw that video, and I didn't even know that happened until after the trial. I never saw that video on mainstream, but again, I was off mainstream for quite a while, but I had never seen that video before.
Interesting. So Nathan, we haven't heard from you in a little while. Give us some feedback, bro.
I really don't know Ryan at all. I did not have any interaction with him in any way, shape, or form. I recall seeing him at one of the buildings briefly, but I didn't have any interaction with him specifically or anything like that.
I would like to say, though, that the prosecution gets its witnesses first. And so we got a parade of some real characters showing up, one after the other. We had Ryan Balch. I'm kind of neutral on him. I'd like to have him on my show some point. But, we had Ryan Balch, and his testimony tended to go back and forth. Then we had the car shop owners who, when they were asked questions like, well, how many cars burned? We don't understand the question. I go, oh, good grief, So, and then you had Gage Grosskreutz. And then at some point, I think the jury's probably looking at each other like, what the hell? And then we get the defense's witnesses, and we get ordinary people. Nice people who have consistent arguments. And it was the contrast between the defense's witnesses and the prosecution's is so vast. And I can't imagine what it would look like if they'd have brought Josh Minsky in. But, I mean, so I've been wanting to say that. I think it was really a breath of fresh air for the jury to finally hear some people who have, both feet on the ground.
Well, as far as the non-ordinary witnesses, I do have to say that Drew Hernandez saying, yeah, at the violent riot. Yep, at the riot. Yep,
you mean
riot.
The violent riot with Antifa and BLM? Yeah, that one.
Right, that one. You mean, yes, you were referring to the riot. Yeah, I went to the bathroom at the violent riot, and then I went and got a coffee at the violent riot, and then, just because he needed to emphasize for them, this is a riot, and it's one of the things that didn't really get any kind of airplay. I mean, we talked about that a little bit earlier, is that everybody needed to say it was a peaceful protest. I'm like, yeah, I always destroy children's dinosaur museums during peaceful protests. It does a fantastic job of communicating my point of view. And, I don't know about you, but I was totally just not caring about this issue of police shootings until they destroyed the dinosaur museum. Then it was like, man, we need to do something about these police shootings. Yeah, I'm going to go take my vacation now.
I don't know if you noticed it, but they asked Drew Hernandez one time about the person who was getting medical aid because Gage Grosskreutz was helping somebody. And Drew said, yeah, because he was at a riot. And if you notice, I think it was Krause behind the scenes started laughing because he knew what Drew Hernandez was doing. That this is
It's a state's
strategy.
witness, remember?
Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
If I may, I would just like to congratulate Joanne to 101 followers. Congrats!
Hey, look at that.
Oh, good Lord.
Breaking the
Believe it or
trail.
not, she has more than me. She
Good
has more
Lord.
than me.
Good job, chat, very well done. So yeah.
You guys are literally making me blush, and that's not an easy task.
I'm going to add on to that. I'm going to make another point. I think it was Joanne's testimony that deflated Binger. I think it was at that point after she got done with being direct examined by Mark Richards. That's the point, I think, where Binger said that he's lost. And I think it totally deflated him. Because at that point, up until then, I think that Binger really felt deep down that, hey, I could still pull this out. But after your testimony, I think he knew he was done. Because what happened was that for the first time, the defense put somebody on the stand that totally eliminated, destroyed the image of the militia, young 25-year-old male, testosterone-driven, out to kill people like that. And all of a sudden they're thinking, well, no, she's kind of like us. And she's defending property. Damn it, I wished I'd have been out there defending property like she did. And I think they related completely to her. But I also think that her comments and I should say your comments because I'm talking to you, but your comments that, Kyle, did you see him helping people? Oh, yeah. That was such a firm, oh, yeah, that Binger couldn't come back on that.
Yeah.
And so I really thought that at the time, Binger knew he was done at that point.
He wasn't done after Gage?
Yeah, no shit.
Keep in mind, Gage kind of destroyed the argument about the charges against, count 5 against Gage, but he didn't do anything about as far as Anthony Huber and especially JoJo Rosenbaum.
Well,
it was Rosenbaum that was the linchpin of this whole thing.
And I believe they said that it was Rosenbaum was the one that was taking them so long.
Yeah.
They said they had already figured out the early ones.
And of course, recent. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Grandpa.
I was going to say, I thought that going back to this Rosenbaum and Zeminski, I'm pretty sure Grimace was the antagonist of Rosenbaum. I think he's the one that got Rosenbaum all fired up and irate and then sent him in like he was using Rosenbaum as a pit bull. And
I agree.
And I'm pretty certain just from watching the video that when they confronted Kyle down by that first car source, that's exactly what Grimace and Red did, is they just antagonized Rosenbaum to go after Kyle. And then, him shooting the gun in the air, he thought, I'm going to try to quench this issue or, slow it down or stop it. I think that just accelerated because now you put the fright in the person who has the gun. So, I'm pretty sure that Zeminski used Rosenbaum as his personal pit bull.
Right. Yeah. By the way, I want to pitch one of my recent videos. In fact, I think it's the last one I did. But why did it take so long for the jury to deliberate on it? Robert Barnes said that there was a hostile juror. I don't think he would have any direct knowledge, but okay. But I think that the defense screwed up on the jury instructions, and they did not demand that the whole thing about fleeing the scene reassert your self-defense rights. I think that may have really almost got that boy convicted. So if you're new to my channel, go watch that one. I think it's my most recent video where I go through the jury instructions. I think the defense screwed up there. But I think in the comments, by the way, there's some defenses of the defense there. But
I personally don't think the jury gives a shit about jury instructions. I mean, do you guys? If you guys are in deliberating, do you really care what the jury instructions say, or do you care if the person, if it was proved beyond? I mean, I mean, I know you're supposed to, right? But if I'm in a deliberation, I don't really care what the jury instructions are. I care about my own common sense.
But didn't they ask for a lot of explanations of the jury instructions afterwards?
Well, the jury instructions go back with them. So they had one copy. They had asked for copies so that each one could have their own copy. And then they asked to take them home with them, which I was like, oh, that's a bad idea. And the judge allowed them to, which I'm not a judge, I'm not a lawyer, but I wouldn't have allowed them to take those home. That's encouraging them to talk about it with loved ones and stuff. But there was from the intel that I got, which is from a really, really good source, there was 3 holdouts. So they took an initial vote, 3 opposed the acquittal. 2 were quickly changed from the dark side to the side of truth, and then the third one kind of waited until the verdict was read. So 3 dissenters down to 1 during that.
Would that have been the Karen juror that some of the lawyers were referring to? Kept been issuing demands or whatever, have this ready for us. Like, it sounded like that juror was the one that was planning to try to convince the rest of them, like they were, continuing the prosecution's case in the jury room.
Yep. Nathan, did you get a look at the jury when you were testifying? You were on the stand longer than I was.
I did. It kind of, by the end of me getting cross-examined by Kraus, I would say they were shocked. Yeah. They were surprised at how Kraus just acted, I would say.
Yeah, and I kind of got that impression when I was describing about when I first saw Rosenbaum, and I was observing, and I'm going back and forth to the girls that were calling me out to Yellow Pants. I was looking at them, and until I even started that testimony, I didn't even realize where the jury was. I just turned around and, oh shit, they were right there. I could have just reached out and touched one of the juries, and I didn't even realize I had a tunnel vision.
That's I was kind of shocked at that too. I don't know. I just anticipated a courtroom being, I guess, bigger than what it was.
Yeah.
And when I had to walk up to the stand, the jury was right there. I felt like I could just reach out.
That's the biggest courtroom in that building too. Wow. That's the ceremonial courtroom. So the most tenured judge gets
with the biggest chair.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Paul? Look like you've been trying to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was surprised how low tech both the defense and in the prosecution they went around the NLA and basically handling the footage and stuff like that. It was play it, pause it, play it. Yes. They didn't have prepared clips and stuff like that specifically on what they wanted to pause, for example. I just simply could not understand that. Okay, fine, the pinch to zoom, that was for a good reason, by the way. That's a real thing. The algorithm, I specifically picked up a video editor that doesn't basically fill it in with pixels and also that's a real thing. Yeah. But still, to have basically some technician, with approved software at hand. Hey, we want to make this bigger, to clarify it and stuff like that. And also, when it came to defense there, because plenty of things would simply help Kyle. Look, just what we did over the, the year, that went from the incident to the trial. What we were able to do, and if you wouldn't to get actual professionals with actual professional software, what I mean, it would be right then and there. And so I must say, I was that's it. That's you have everything on camera, and you just go with this.
Aside from the defense, the expert guy, Black,
Dr. Black, yeah,
he enhanced some footage so that we could see it more clearly. There really wasn't much else, and it was kind of awkward. When Binger lied and claimed that Rosenbaum wasn't present, it took me about, 10 seconds to pull my clip of, nope, he's right there. But they had to, they didn't have that information. And, it wasn't immediately available, and it was so maddening. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. And also, when there was the whole fiasco with the two versions of that of the footage, the drone footage, where the defense, had the lower quality and stuff like that. And Miss Visco was comparing the metadata, with the two files, the creation time. And then, those are two irrelevant, data sets. You need to compare it to the creation of that lower quality file and when the email was sent. If they don't align, then there is a purposeful manipulation, of that. And I was just screaming at the screen, say that. And I was, just surprised that they didn't have, honestly, some technician or some expert, right then and there with them. Because it could have come in handy, throughout the entirety of the trial and a lot.
So I did want to say we are now at the 3+ hour mark.
Yeah, it's getting kind of
tends to be when things need to wind down. Do we want to take a moment for station identification? Tell everybody to give out their social media one more time so we can get Grambo to 10,000 followers and.
I'm almost there. I'm at 8500.
What's that?
Grambo, you need to change you can change, and Twitter you can change it as often as you want. You need to change your name and put in parentheses Grambo so people know it's you for sure. That's just a suggestion.
Yeah, and you are at 117, as of now.
Oh, good Lord, you guys. I don't know that I'll change it to, parentheses Grambo. I don't know. We'll see. And like I said, I'm not and I don't want to get on it.
So how many followers does she have right now?
117.
I have 217, and I've been at this for a long time.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Yeah, Nate DeBruin, that little shithead. I've been trying to get YouTube, freaking Twitter followers, and he quadrupled me in 4 minutes.
Yeah, there's the goal. There's a goal. The goal is to beat Nathan.
Yeah. Nate, I think people were scouring the internet, scouring Twitter, looking for photo chat, and he popped up, and it's they started.
Yeah,
everybody.
Nathan, just checked, you have some 8,400, followers, on Twitter. So I'm gonna clip basically, what we will do? I'll clip the rant where I was basically, basically, you know what I mean? How do you dare, to do this, to this man? And you're gonna share it on your, on your Twitter and say, hey, there's this, chick dude, you should probably follow him, and stuff like that.
All right. Paul, have you ever been to the U.S.?
No, I've never been. Met quite a few Yanks. I lived in Germany and Luxembourg, and at one time I was living at the college campus. So exchange students and stuff like that, came in and out, And yeah, I observed, there's different differences, culturally, even how you communicate on quite basic level, on fundamental, and. Sometimes it causes you problems, you have a wee bit problem of disagreeing with one another, disagreeing with someone. You're kind of untalented in that. I'm sorry, but that is just how I see it.
Do you have a visa? Can you come here? Can you physically come here?
Sure, I'm incredibly busy, but for if I don't think there's right now any COVID restrictions, but that's about that. But we have non-visa relationship,
so you can just come here whenever you want.
Czech Republic, for 90 days, the regular, just stamp, in the passport, So yeah.
But Grambo, let me and Nate know when you want to come down to Kenosha. Maybe Johnny will fly in and we can. Mm-hmm. That'd be fun.
I'm down.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping, because after. Oh, sorry. I was kind of hoping, right after New Year's, because once I get back to work after New Year's, it's going to be 4 months before there's another break.
Yeah.
So it's kind of difficult for me on the weekends.
Well, if you're all going to go to Kenosha, why don't you guys go to the Zeminski trial?
Oh,
me and Nate are being there.
Yeah, me and Kevin will be there.
Nate's under subpoena. If he doesn't show up, he can get in trouble.
Yeah, I got photo chat again.
Yeah, photo chat is, but I don't think there's going to be a live stream of that. So I'll try to post pretty often on Twitter. For those of you who want to know what's going on with the Zeminski trial, just follow me on Twitter, Kenosha, CTY
Are you guys surprised that I'm shocked that they allowed the cameras? There's two things I'm shocked about. I'm shocked that they allowed the cameras in for Kyle's case. Thank God they did.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But I'm also shocked after I got done testifying that I walked past all those cameramen and they were too busy talking to other, I don't know, they weren't talking to other people. I think they're talking to other camera people and news anchors. Because the guy that drove me down there, he's just like, now you have to walk through this whole crowd. I'm like, oh, crap. And I was literally walking behind two teenage BLMers screaming their BLM song. And I bet you we walked past 30 news crews and nobody said anything. And that's why I thought, well, geez, I guess they don't really care about my testimony. Must have did a shitty job. So it's kind of funny. So I was kind of shocked about that, getting all the publicity I did afterwards, or not publicity, but the memes. Right, which, by the way, I didn't even know I was trending. My Patriot group had to explain that to me. I thought they were showing me the memes. They were sending me the memes, and I thought they were creating them. They're like, no, Ann, you don't understand. You're trending. And that's why I thought, oh, shit.
That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I saw it. I was looking at Twitter. Who's Grambo?
Yeah, funny stuff.
So,
okay.
All right. I guess then if we want to do our final outros, Nathan, remind everybody where they can buy your exquisite, fantastic photos. And give your, if they want it, I remember there's a specific way if they want it signed.
I got you covered.
Oh, yeah, you threw it there? All right, sweet. Never mind. Review the things down below there, guys, in the scrolling chat like CNN.
Hey, Nate, are people buying your merch?
Some. I did have a little battle that isn't publicly known yet. I did trademark Photos by Nate D, and I had some jackass while I was in Florida tried to post his merchandise with my logo onto my Twitter site. And I did have, because it is in the trademark process, my lawyer did fire off a cease and desist letter, and they are suspended from Twitter, and the merchandise is taken down. So
nice.
I sold a couple things, not as much as I would like, but I have sold some things, so I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful again. I like to mention for all the people that have donated to me. It has helped tremendously. And again, I am going for more legal fees in January. And obviously I am continuing therapy, and my short-term disability benefits can't even pay for my therapy a month, if that's to sum it up. So a lot of money is being spent because of this trial. And I just want to, the last thing that I will say is tonight at 10 o'clock, I'll be on Good Logic. If you want to tune in and watch me on part 2 examining, or I guess part 2 on my testimony from the stand, I will be reviewing that live. So be sure to check in with that. I will have that link posted in a few hours on my Twitter at photosbynated.com. If anyone ever has any questions about anything, they want something personal done, anything, just to talk, feel free to email me. My email is listed below, or it's on my website. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm a friendly person. I am not how Kraus portrays me to be. And that's all that I got. And I just want to give a shout out to everyone that has joined in onto this live stream. Definitely thank you for allowing me to be here. Also, make sure everyone that is watching subscribes to each of our channels. I know there's not much personally on my channel yet, but there will be in the upcoming months as I learn how to do a lot of things. So,
and I'm going to try to bring Nathan out to the shooting range. I got 2 ARs with our names on it.
Yes, yes, I would love to.
All right.
But other than that, thank you guys. It was a pleasure meeting the people I have not met. I really appreciate again being on here, and I hope you guys all truly the best. And if you guys ever want me back on a show or something like that, I would love to be here.
Fantastic. And then, you know, I guess the easiest way you can help guys like us is, you know, just word of mouth. You know, when you're on these huge channels, spread awareness of Logical Checkmate, Johnny Walker Dread, and V Radio. Because one of the things I've noticed is, like, back when I was in media, we used to share everybody's stuff. Like, everybody did that. And YouTubers sometimes are actually a bit more competitive. Like, I did a super chat to Rakita Law. They didn't even read it. You know, so, like, they read everybody else's, so I know they saw it, you know. And all I did was offer to come on because my video helped identify.
Mom, please be quiet.
You know, so, but anyway, you know, cross promotion is really important. So now, Grambo, since you've had to tell great Grambo,
She's over there snorting and going, whoa. It's like, Mom, come on.
Just start a reality show in your house.
Oh my God. And I thought I had my mic muted until I saw Paul's face.
No, it's cool. Well, that's one of the benefits of being on one of these laid-back streams as opposed to mainstream media, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Too funny. I was afraid that you'd hear her snoring through the mic.
Well, I hope
crazy.
that this session was as cathartic and fun as the ones that we've had previous for you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I really appreciate having the talk with you, Neil, because, like I said, it felt really good to talk about it. It helped me quite a bit. My goal here is actually to help Nathan. So, and if anybody wants to see photos of me and Nathan, or me, Nathan, and Kevin, or me arresting Kevin while Nathan takes photos of it. I mean, maybe we can get Johnny Walker in there and we can get him arrested as well. Send Nathan a message or message me on Twitter at, what is it? Ann_citizen.
Yep.
And let us know what you want to see, because I will be getting together with Nathan to take some photo shoots to help him out. Anything that sells for us is all going to Nathan. I'm not taking nothing. I don't need it. I'm just here to help him out.
Excellent.
So I want to let everybody know. Yep. And thank you all for coming out and listening to this today.
And, you know, when you get your photos taken, you know, be sure, since you're single, you know, that you're going to have to get some photos that'll be good for your online profiles so you can, you know, find yourself. I was just thinking, like, what it'd be like if you were on that show. Bachelor number 1, if we went out on a date, which pistol would you be carrying? And which side holster would you put it on? You know, what is your preferred, Bachelor number 2, what is your preferred ammunition?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll tell you, if we get a selection of men, why don't we come back on here and we'll interview them all together?
The Grambo dating show.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm all about it, bro. Let's do it.
I don't know. He chooses the full metal jacket bullets. Those are going to go right through a person.
Oh, God,
yeah, we need to get him out of
Or
there.
MSNBC full metal bullets. That's what one of the MSNBC pundits said. I'm like, what did you just say? I was like, nobody makes full metal bullets. What are you
Or like when the
about?
judge had to correct Binger, like he's like, do you mean exploding bullets? Like they explode because they exist, but I'm pretty sure they weren't in Kenosha. So, folks, from me, I would like if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I am 108 subscribers away from monetization. And the money that I make online, I use to sue people like the DA's office. I got 2 current lawsuits against Michael Gravely's DA's office, and I'm represented by Wisconsin's #1 public records lawyer. His name is Tom Kamenick of the Wisconsin Transparency Project. So, yeah, so when I get money, I just use it to hold the government accountable. So just follow me at Kenosha County I on YouTube.
Right
Yeah,
here.
also, don't
Lot of
forget
fun
your
stuff.
online newspaper there too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, KenoshaCountyI.com. EYE.
Yeah, I use that for a lot of my
EYE.com.
material.
Right.
And you can
Because
put your email in there and get notifications sent to you. I like to do about 4 to 5 articles per week, and I have a lot of lawyers and experts that do guest columns and stuff like that. But yeah, check it out. KenoshaCountyIEYE.com. There's a link to my Twitter and YouTube there as well. Thank you, guys.
Hey, you want a guest column from me?
Yeah, heck
I was
yeah.
going to say, I'd
All right.
probably write one for you, too. I didn't think
Either of
about
you
that.
guys are
It's
welcome.
been a while since I wrote an article.
Yeah, well, but Kevin, be very mindful, of Johnny Walker Dread's spelling mistakes and stuff like that, and grammar mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah, because damn it, gonna make you spell one word incorrect. I'm gonna be up your ass like Binger on Kraus.
Wow. Is that the direction you think it's taking? Is Binger on Kraus, or do you think it would be the other way?
I started to think about it, and I stopped.
Then you realize, why am I thinking about this?
Yeah.
So, Logical Checkmate, tell them all about you, bro.
Well, you can follow me, for example, on Twitter or on YouTube, Logical Checkmate, just as you see it on, on the screen right here. I basically want to focus on the lies in the media, for the most part. I have actually a kind of big video coming out, but it will take me a while before I get onto that might interest all Americans, like left, right, doesn't matter. And so yeah, subscribe there, if you would like to see that. And here and there, I will be comparing things between the United States and Czech Republic. One thing that, Neil, you mentioned is that we need our audience to support us a wee bit more, especially, with subscriptions and with views. And I have, there a video that incredibly underperformed, and that is basically a show procedures of the Czech police and a response to riots. And YouTube, for some reason, age restricted it, despite there being no violence, no real violence, just flashbangs going off and stuff like that. I guess they interpreted it as gunshots. So yeah, if you are interested in that, how in Czech Republic we handle riots in comparison with, for example, Kenosha. I know that Kevin's in, at least that part of the video. So yeah, definitely check it out, and yeah, you will not be disappointed.
Yeah, that's the next one I want to talk to you about. Is when we talk about gun rights, it's a lot easier for some of the European countries to be anti-gun because they're not parked next to a country run by the cartel. It's easier to keep guns out of the hands of people, say in the UK, for example, than it is in the United States. And the majority of the crime that's committed with guns in the United States is all done with illegal weapons anyway. But my point was just that you can't compare us to, say, Denmark. So I mean, that's what I'd like to talk to you about on your show, is how gun rights are like in your country as compared to ours.
Yeah.
And by the way, I usually tell people, because they go on, the U.S. has got so much crime because so many guns. I tell them, oh, wow, that does sound dangerous. I better get a gun.
That's not that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I need a gun.
Right.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I guess, Johnny, go ahead and go next.
Oh, why don't you go ahead, Neil? I'll tail off on the end here.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for tuning in today. For those of you on my stream, obviously, and if you are one of my subscribers, make sure you check out everybody's work that's on this channel. And amplify the signal. That really goes a long way. I know, for example, obviously, I've got a Patreon up because I was monetized for about 4 days and it didn't last. And I didn't really expect to stay monetized long. I'm not looking to make a lot of money. I'm just looking to be whole, which is actually how I prefer to live, is, fairly inexpensively. So if you can, go ahead. But if you can't, that's the reason I'm bringing this up. If you financially can't help us, just sharing stuff will really help. Because the other payoff of all this is that we know that we're doing this work and that somebody is seeing it. That really helps. As a consequence, make sure that you share our work everywhere you can. If you don't want to put it publicly on your profile, maybe you know somebody privately that you could recommend it to. I know, for example, I get private messages all the time from people who've said, thank you so much for your work, but they won't say it publicly. And it's because they know if they publicly list, say, Kyle Rittenhouse is innocent on their Facebook page, that there's going to be a smack around for that. And I don't mean in the positive, Logical Checkmate smack around sense of that. But as I said, announcements from previous, I'm going to have Brett Weinstein on my show. I'm going to be on Good Logic's show. And I'm working on some other stuff. There's going to be a documentary specifically identifying Antifa as domestic terrorists and calling into question. If you go back even to 2017, for some reason Antifa was reported on radically differently, not just by the media, but by the government. At one point, the government openly stated, of basically a rising threat of domestic terrorism from Antifa. Then it just abruptly stopped. And there's all this emphasis now on, for example, I'm sure everybody on this channel is a domestic terrorist because we're all obviously extremely right-leaning, and we are the real danger in this country just because we had this conversation. But people who are openly just, say like Michael Forrest Reinhold, he just openly murdered a man for being a patriot in the street, and nobody talks about it. If they talk about that case, all they talk about is how Reinhold got shot by the police.
Right.
But anyway, if you like this kind of work, amplifying the signal, again, is really important because we're not going to get that attention. That's why I pointed out, I ran an ad for a talk I had with somebody on my show, and they canceled it. So that means you guys are going to have to do it yourself. If you want other people to hear this message, please share our work, like and subscribe. It means a lot to us. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. V-Rate, that's another example of the censorship I'm dealing with, was Linktree took down my website. Like, no reason. It's a stupid little link website, and I had to get a new one, and I have a new one. Eventually, v-radio.us will go over to it, but Linktree said, well, there was something that violated our community terms in one of your links, and because we want to avoid abuse, we're not going to tell you which one. I don't even understand how it makes any sense.
Jesus, my...
Right. So I don't even know what I did wrong, because to avoid abuse, we can't tell you what we did wrong.
Stupidity of that.
Right. We're making our Czech Republic friend really angry. So if you want to avoid that rage, then you have to share my stuff. So thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and and check out everybody's channels. And thanks again. On to you, Johnny.
All right. Well, I first want to thank my two guests for coming on and taking the time out for this. I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and love to do more of this in the future. And again, I would like to go ahead and meet up with you guys in Wisconsin at some point here in the near future. I'm all for it. As far as my channel goes, I have a full-time job. I never intended any of this to do much of anything. I started off the Johnny Walker Dread channel examining primarily shootings of white people and comparing them to those of shootings with black people, saying that, hey, these things happen to everybody. And it started off with the whole Rayshard Brooks deal, where he was shot by pulling out a taser of an officer and firing it at him. And then I compared that to a very sad case in Alabama where an officer pulled a guy got a hold of her taser, just put her hand on it. She pulled a pistol out, stuck it in his stomach, and killed him in front of his family. And I compared the two cases and saying, look, this idea of somebody of getting shot because they threatened somebody with a taser, it's not relegated to black people at all. It happens to people of all races and like that. And that's where my channel, where it started. And then all of a sudden the Kyle Rittenhouse thing came about, and I said, you know what? This is just too interesting. It has every possible conflict that you can think of. It has gun rights. It has, self-defense in there. And with Kyle hitting the girl, it even had that in there as well. So, I looked at this as just too juicy. I went ahead and went full bore. At this point now, I have over 300 videos on Kyle Rittenhouse. And I cover not only the events of what happened, but also the legalities behind it. And then I created the Dumb Argument series. And if you want to watch anything that's like really short, like a little bit more fun stuff, the Dumb Argument series, where I pick on a dumb argument that people make when it comes to the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. And I have 75 of them. And frankly, and that was before the trial. So now it would be probably in the hundreds at this point. So, things like, he carried the gun across state lines, all that kind of stuff. I've already dealt with them. If you encounter an argument on the web, a dumb one, I have probably covered a video on it. So you can just look on my channel. But at any rate, and then I also had Binger boneheaded moments. So I have like 8 of those. So all these times when Binger made an ass out of himself, I have a video of that. But I keep in mind, this is before the trial. Now I have to actually use a spreadsheet to capture all the ones I want to do, because there's so many instances where he just put his foot in his mouth. and now I'm going to do local lawyers.
You know, Johnny, we forgot to ask the biggest question that we had intended. Is Nate, did you have a camera on you on August 25th?
I couldn't believe that question got asked. That's right.
So you did have a camera, right?
Oh my
I did
God,
have
that
a
took a
camera.
second.
On
to
the
sink
record,
in.
okay, he did have a
Okay,
camera.
I'm going to have to open up my spreadsheet and add another listing there.
I do want to make a quick plug to Kenosha County Eye. If you guys have not watched his video of them catching MSNBC like trying to chase the jury, that was so fantastic because it looks like a couple of kids who got caught doing something and they're trying to come up with really like, we were just trying to respectfully get information on the case and like where people were positioned. I'm like, what on earth? Like, and then like, so then like Snopes contacted you to make sure it was legit, and then I just watched the mainstream media. It probably is up to like 50,000 views now. It's your biggest video, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
That was fantastic. That was like, I wish then the mainstream media just like starts ripping it and like putting it on all their stuff. But you should have stuck a letter mark in there. Like
I should have, yeah.
But either way, you still got 50,000 out of it. That's fantastic. Yep. So, but no, that video is absolute comedy gold. I've rewatched it a few times. It's like if you ever want to look at grown adults act like children who just got caught like stealing cookies or something, that's exactly what it looked like.
Yep.
I have a reaction video to that event as well. I think probably my favorite videos, though, of when I take on The View and Real and all these, I would say, talking head lawyers. And I will say this, that the law profession has really just been decimated. So there's a lot of lawyers out there making a lot of really stupid comments, and I love taking those things on. And I guess that's pretty much all you need to know. Again, over 300 videos. If you're interested in the Kyle Rittenhouse thing and Crystal Kaiser and Dominic Black and all that, go onto my channel and watch some of the videos, and I'm sure you'll love them.
Awesome.
Yeah, if I may just, like with final words, like guys, sharing and talking with friends, like our content, it really helps. As a living proof, Grambo's, like Twitter at 150 followers. So yeah, we got her there from how many? 17. So that's you guys. You did this awesome job.
Way to go,
make
guys.
a difference.
Well, I'm gonna make sure I spread that when I'm on Good Logic's channel, and Nathan DeBruin, you got to throw her Twitter everywhere, and
Yep.
Tonight.
Yeah.
If you look at the antithesis of this, it's me. I've been at this for over a year, and I have like 500 and something subscribers. I couldn't market porn. Seriously.
Yeah, and mine is shadow banned. Like people have to actually type in the full thing to find me. So I get it. And that's so. All right, guys, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed talking to all of you, and and again, as like I said to Nathan and to Grambo, is like this is what it's like to be a panelist. It's fun, and we should ask you guys to come on just to talk about day-to-day things that may have nothing to do with Kenosha. You guys are fun to talk to. So
absolutely,
and Kevin,
I would love to.
Yeah, and Kevin, you have an excellent voice for podcasting and video, and I hope you continue to do it on your channel. You're always good at talking about this kind of stuff. And obviously, everybody already knows my feelings about Johnny and and Logical. And I stumbled on Johnny while I was just looking at stuff on YouTube, and actually the algorithm actually sent me to you, so that's how I came across you. And then through you, I met Paul. So this has been a great conversation. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
And
thank you.
It's been awesome.
Have a safe New Year, everybody.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Nathan, I'll get a hold of you soon.
Absolutely.
Right, take care, guys.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.